fearless adventurer grips a sacred artifact in his hands, and power surges through his veins. Now he charges straight into the darkness, smashing into demons and monsters that far outmatch him, all while faith and courage burn hot, driving him to stand between danger and the weak. He tore through the demon and monster invasion, saving city after city, and in the blink of an eye, the adventurer became a legendary hero. His wins and daring exploits lived on in legends retold for generations, lighting the path for the next batch of heroes to step up and follow in his footsteps. After devouring tales of an ancient adventurer who saved cities and crushed demons, the young man couldn't sit still. He burned with a single goal: become that kind of legendary hero. Lost in ancient legends, he didn't even see the person appear beside him. Then, with a brutal swipe, they snatched the book straight from his hands. Ever since childhood, this kid lived for books, dreaming of becoming the kind of hero he only saw in stories, so lost in wild adventures that he didn't even notice two hooligans creeping up behind him and snatching his book, then pausing just long enough to see what had him hooked. When hooligan snapped, "You're reading that book alone again," and when the second leaned in, he saw it right away. Another tale about a hero who starts out pathetic, then gets a sacred artifact, and boom, power, fame, and legends. The bully kept pressing him, "So you really dream of becoming a hero?" And then the third one butted in, sneering that the boy would never make it because he didn't have the courage. And right that day, for the first time, his mind latched onto every word the hooligan said, but it didn't crush his dream. It lit a fuse, and he swore to himself he'd become a real adventurer. Suddenly, a piercing cry sliced through the chaos, demanding the stolen book be handed back to the boy, and the hooligan snapped around just in time to see Ruby standing right in front of them. He clocked that her look was his shot to step up, prove he had guts, and show true courage. Her backing lit a fire under him, and suddenly he knew he could square up to the bullies and protect the right to read his favorite books. He snapped his eyes open and spoke the name of the girl who saved his confidence, then bullied him into taking that first step toward the dream he'd been clinging to. At that exact moment, she stared him down like she was sizing him up, piece by piece. When Ratsu swung around to look at her, Ruby's cheeks flared with embarrassment, but she still flashed the guy a bright smile and wished him a good morning. Sweat beaded on her face, screaming how hyped and flustered she felt. He blurted in shock why she was suddenly in his room and how it even happened. Yet when the girl tried to explain, her words tangled in her throat, choking off her thoughts before she could say a single thing clearly. The older sister snapped back that she'd been pounding on that door forever, but the young man wouldn't answer, so she had to squeeze through the window and climb in. And on top of that, she was told to wake him up. So when Ratsu realized what kind of awakening this was, shock slammed into him and he literally froze, stunned. The girl grabbed the guy's attention and practically shoved him forward, urging him to get ready fast, because the long-awaited blessing ceremony was happening today. He finally got it. Today wasn't just another day. It was the big ceremony where God hands down sacred treasures to kids who turned 12. The mother leaned in and told her kids she couldn't make it to the ceremony with them. She told Ruby-chan to watch over Ratsu, and the girl said, "I have to, I'm his older sister." But when Ratsu heard that, he couldn't help but smirk to himself, because he realized they were the same age. There was no older at all. The sister stared around in awe, stunned by how packed the church was with people, and the bright, noisy celebration made her beam with real joy, while her brother just watched her reaction, let out a sigh, and teased that she was acting like a kid. The girl blinked at him, stunned. "Did you really stay up all night reading again?" Because this guy was chomping at the bit for that special day, and she couldn't wrap her head around how he even managed to sleep through something that huge. Ratsu confessed he was shaking with nerves before the ceremony, and the second Ruby heard his disconfession, she snapped his words right back, like she had to make sure she got every detail from her brother. Now she finally understood why he was panicking, because something this huge hits a child's life only once, and nobody has the faintest clue what kind of gift the gods will hand him. His brother's nerves were shot. He feared he'd stumble into some weird, impossible sacred treasure, and it would all go wrong, but Ruby grabbed his attention and soothed him, saying the odds of that happening were insanely tiny. Her older sister kept going, spilling how the village boys constantly mocked them, and how she craved something truly unforgettable, just to make everyone take notice. Ratsu nodded along but stayed quiet, stuck with no idea what to say. The boys couldn't stop themselves. They leaned in and eavesdropped on two guys nearby, and one of them bragged, "If you score Class C or better at the ceremony, the path to being a real adventurer basically unlocks itself." As they kept talking, the man admitted his friend used to dream about jumping into the family business, selling fruit, and the other guy nodded, saying he'd push to at least level D, fully convinced he could crush it and build a brand new future. Meanwhile, two young girls nearby whispered to each other. One said she'd rather have an adventurer guard her than chase that life herself, and the other girl nodded along. While he listened to every word, the boy realized one wild truth: turning into an adventurer isn't everyone's dream. On the day of the anniversary, a massive crowd showed up with every kind of goal imaginable, and his sister leaned in like, "Look at them, so many different views, so many different hopes." But then Ratsu's attention snapped sideways as a flicker of movement caught his eye, and he stared at it with wary suspicion, sensing something either intriguing or totally shady. Scanning the crowd, the young man spotted a few strangers who radiated pure confidence and chilled calm, and because they looked like they'd seen danger before, he couldn't help staring, reading every twitch, every move, every way they carried themselves. He remembered the rule: if a seasoned adventurer was genuinely blown away by your personality or skills, they could pull you into the community on the spot. No boring entrance exam first, and Ruby stared at him, asking, "Seriously, is that real?" With tension roaring in his chest, the young man's hands started to tremble, just a little at first, like something big was about to happen. Seeing her brother's excitement light up his face, the sister leaned in and demanded, "Do you remember the promise you swore earlier?" They both swore on their hearts to guard everyone in their homeland from the evil demons coming to attack. Together, they swore to become the greatest heroes the world would ever chant about, remembered forever for protecting the peace, while that hunger to be the best of the best burned bright in their hearts, filling them with pride and unstoppable confidence for the future. They both chased the same dream: becoming adventurers so they could turn those hopes into reality and earn fame as legendary heroes everyone would respect and copy, because they were dead sure that their talent, hard work, and teamwork would carry them straight to success. Suddenly, the eerie silence shattered when a strange voice popped up behind the boys, and the stranger smirked like he owned the moment, swearing every single word was dead-on true because he'd personally witnessed miracles with his own eyes. The stranger blared that there wasn't a single doubt in his mind that he was a real hero, ready to pull off something huge. Then the surprised guy leaned in and asked what that title really meant, praying to hear more about what this man planned to do next. Ruby burst out, shouting that hero is a title reserved only for the strongest, most respected adventurer. Then a young man stepped up and calmly told her that their group had been hunting for her for ages. Her sister's friends, lagging just a bit behind, shouted at her that she was running late. The ceremony was about to start. She hurried to her brother and told him she'd be gone for a little while, swearing she'd be back in just a minute. Ratsu couldn't help but feel the sting of how different they were. She charmed everyone and breezed from one friendship to the next, always pulling eyes like a spotlight, while he kept to himself, quiet and shy, choosing solitude and disappearing into old tomes and legends. A random stranger accidentally clipped the confused guy with his shoulder, and instantly his awkward panic went from bad to worse. Turns out it was Helio, your local troublemaker with a sharp tongue and a cocky grin, and as he strolled past, he threw out a mock apology to Ratsu, sneering that he just hadn't noticed something so tiny. He smirked and taunted, asking if that guy was actually even going to show up for the ceremony. The bully sneered that he wanted to see what scraps a weak opponent like that might even get, if he got anything at all, and Helio kept needling him, laughing that the kid couldn't possibly stand a chance in the fight, so he'd be better off not showing up. Ratsu, rattled and unsure of himself, gave a timid nod to the impudent teenager's words, fear freezing his body so hard he couldn't move or act. The bully yanked the boy's favorite book right out of his hands, taunted him for still rereading old fairy tales, and acted like he hadn't already outgrown childish games. Helio sneered with malicious laughter, mocking the kid for thinking a hero could be born just from some powerful artifact. Then he waved him off like a helpless little toddler, barely 2 years old, calling his dreams childish, naive, and weak. Suddenly, a hand clamped down on the bully's wrist and froze his nasty words mid-sentence. Turns out it wasn't just anyone, it was Ruby. She shot Helio a stern glare and commanded him, right then, to hand back the stolen book, the one he'd grabbed rudely from his younger comrade. Ratsu let out a breath of relief, because his sister had his back, and the nasty pressure from Helio finally disappeared. Fuming at the girl's interference, the bully snapped his tongue and ranted that she always barged in and ruined his fun. Helio sneered that if a man needed a woman's protection, he wasn't just unworthy of a sacred artifact, he definitely wasn't adventurer material. Those vicious barbs cut straight into him, crushing his spirit until he felt completely worthless and pathetic. Ruby didn't hesitate. She jumped in to back the boy up, whispering that sometimes silence is the sharpest answer, and those ugly attacks didn't deserve a second thought. The girl beamed and declared that her brother was going all in on a noble mission, training into a fearless, skilled hero who could shoulder responsibility with pride and smash through any hardship. Ratsu's chest filled with deep gratitude for his sister, because only she could truly get what he was feeling, back him up, and make him believe he had the power to stand strong. With a grave voice, the priest kicked off the blessing ceremony, summoning the young initiates to step up to the temple altar, where sacred relics and divine protection were waiting for them. Right before the ceremony kicked off, the boy leaned in and whispered a prayer, remembering the old tradition. On that special day, the sun's sacred light lets people reach the gods. Ruby's eyes snapped to the clock as the crucial moments hit, and she hushed her brother, telling him the ceremony had officially started. One of the young men suddenly surged forward and volunteered to test his fate first, showing off a kind of courage and self-belief you almost never see in his peers. With everyone watching, he strode up to the altar with unshakable confidence, pouring every last ounce of determination into finishing the ritual right. The priest leaned in and laid down a clear command: focus your mind, then pour your heart into prayer. A blinding beam of light slammed onto the young man's face, pouring pure energy through him like a surge of inner light, like the gods themselves were smiling in approval. The altar erupted in blinding light, and most of the spectators in the church hall snapped their hands over their eyes, wincing at the glare, and swaying a little because the brightness made them dizzy. Ratsu snapped his eyes open and realized he wasn't in a normal church at all. This was a towering, candlelit hall, thick with mystery, where the most important blessing ceremony decided the fate of every single person standing there. The young man cradled an odd, God-given blade in his hands, and everyone nearby stared at the new sacred artifact with wide-eyed awe, like they couldn't wait to find out what powers the weapon's owner truly had. He shot to full height and roared that a glorious steel battle axe, blessed by the gods and stamped as a Class C weapon, had chosen him. A sudden shout erupted from one of the young guys in the crowd, and you could hear pure awe and excitement. He couldn't believe the first candidate got his hands on a legendary, high-level artifact, and it screamed that this kid's got serious talent and a huge future. The priest told everyone gathered that the artifact's real power won't show up until they've fully geared up with the right equipment. Then he demanded that anyone who'd brought a sacred weapon speak up right away and claim it. Helio stared at his lucky rival with a heavy glare, envy and disappointment burning inside him, as he realized fate had handed the other guy a better artifact. Next, one of the girls stepped forward, shoulders calm, feet steady, gliding to the altar, bowing to the shrine with respect, then pouring her whole heart into fierce prayer, begging the gods to finally choose her a sacred artifact. A searing storm dagger landed in her hands, and someone in the crowd leaned in, whispering that this year could bring a bountiful harvest. He kept insisting this was already the second guy with that kind of rank, while the dude beside him clamped his breath shut, barely daring to blink, waiting for the next move. Ratsu didn't even blink. Everyone around him was smiling, because those treasures were sorted exactly the way the gods decreed. Artifact items get split into 6 big ranks, A, B, C, D, E, and F, with D sitting right in the middle, and everyone already knows 2 lucky souls landed valuable Class C items, which is a massive flex. Ruby couldn't stop hoping they'd score artifacts worthy of them too. He nodded like, yeah, already feeling it. Tonight was gonna flip everything. He knew exactly how weak he could be, and how easily tears would spill, because bullying had haunted him his whole life, and now this was the turning point that could totally rewrite his fate, but only a powerful artifact could give him the strength and confidence to stand up. His sister told him, don't sweat it, everything's gonna be okay, and guess what? Helio really did land a B-rank lightning spear. His friends lit up, bragged that they'd known all along, and immediately demanded, show us that spear. Time after time, different groups hauled him in, dangling a dream job as an adventurer, but the young man just smirked, cold and condescending, eyes raking over the other rookies like he already knew they'd be useless. Ratsu threw himself into supporting Helio, genuinely cheering when he nailed his success, while Ruby watched Envy's moves and instantly decided she needed a treasure far more powerful. The guy beside her fired her up with words of encouragement, promising good luck as she set her sights on it. The girl breathed out her name and dove into prayer, locking herself in with the deities, while the boy nearby fretted over whether his older sister truly noticed his feelings, caught in a cruel swirl of doubts and hope. When he was little, he'd lose himself in books, and that usually meant he ended up alone. He still remembered how his peers kept dragging him, sneering that he'd never be a real hero, while his sister was the only one who fought back, stood by his side, and lit a fire in him to believe he could make it. She bravely fought back against the bullies who tormented her little brother, but deep down, because she was the older sister, she knew one truth: she couldn't shield him forever. He's gotta learn how to stand his ground and make everyone see he really deserves respect, while she also knows this is his dream, to become the kind of cool hero people look up to. Right then it hit him, maybe he wasn't just wishing anymore, maybe he wanted to grow up strong and brave like his older sister, the dream calling to him louder than ever. Ruby let the A-rank fire dragon sword crash to the ground. The priest stood there with bated breath and unveiled the artifact like it was priceless, stunned that he'd never seen anything quite like it before, and calling it absolutely mind-blowing. The boy looked at Rubia with real, burning admiration. She proudly thrust her most powerful artifact into her younger brother's hands, and he stared at her like a worshiper, totally blown away, convinced she was the real hero. The girl got hit with a wave of offers to join every team imaginable, but she still paused to send Rats off with her best wishes, so the final decision stayed in her own hands. The boy strode up to the altar, head bowed, and begged God to give him the strength to become a true hero. He begged for the strength to burn away forever the picture of that weak, whiny kid, one even Helio could steamroll, and to grow a power that would let him protect Rubia and stand beside her in a fight, no shame, full dignity. He craved this power for one reason only, so he could shield his precious older sister no matter what. His hopes got obliterated the moment the young man pulled out an artifact so wildly unusual and so brutally unattractive that it left him speechless. Helio blared out a loud laugh, then basically told the kid, "All you're left with is a heap of worthless junk." While everyone in the company was cracking up, a sharp clack of women's heels thundered through the room, snapping heads around instantly. Everyone's eyes snapped to her the moment she stepped into the room, radiant, royal, and totally fearless. The way she carried herself screamed aristocracy, and nobody even hesitated. This was the celebrity whose arrival left zero room for doubt. Paludi the hero closed in on Ruby and pitched her a daring offer, "Join me." Everyone was stunned. Paludi herself invited this girl straight into her group. People said there was no way she could refuse, because offers like that don't show up for just anyone, and Ruby. She couldn't even believe this miracle was real. The heroine snapped that she was going with her, but the girl froze, blinking hard as confusion crashed in, then fumbled to get her words out, shaky and uncertain. Ruby clutched her brother's hand like it was life, then politely begged the honored lady to wait just a moment. He realized his prize was an artifact so low it was rated F rank, and when he finally looked down, his reward was a totally rusted, battered sword, and he couldn't even believe it. Paludi got approached by the older sister, who begged to bring Ratsu along too, determined to make sure her brother was right there with her in this glorious team. She snapped at the young man that there was no way he'd ever be an adventurer. He hit rock bottom, crushed, helpless, and convinced fate was locked in, so he lost every last shred of faith that he could change his destiny. When he heard what the heroine said, it hit him. This was the most hopeless artifact imaginable. Paludi kept talking, and the truth came crashing in. Demons had stone-hard skin wrapped in protective magic, so with an ordinary weapon or a low-rank artifact, Ratsu couldn't even land a single scratch. The girl snapped that his weapon was an F rank, the lowest of the low, and the young man's stomach dropped as he realized the blessing ceremony was basically a total disaster, condemning him to spend the rest of his life as a lifelong loser. She kept going, warning him that if he tagged along, monsters and demons would chew him up in no time. Then she snapped that he should willingly drop any dream of being a hero. His sister shot back with total confidence. Nobody would know for sure until they actually tried. She spoke warmly and swore she'd help for sure, and those words knocked the guy completely off balance, straight into a dead end. He knew his relative would pick him over the famous hero, choosing to guard him forever like he was still a helpless kid, and that realization crushed the young man into deep, helpless despair. That day, Ratsu decided he didn't want to hide behind his loved one's protection anymore, so he took control and struck out on his own. He told the girl to head on ahead and wait for him there, then declared he'd take the test and win so he could finally become a real, full-fledged adventurer. When his sister reminded him of the promise he'd made, he just smiled and swore that someday he'd be an adventurer who wouldn't back down, not even against legendary heroes. The young man stood his ground and swore he'd become strong enough to protect her, then promised he'd catch up to her no matter what. A flash of the same old scene slammed into Ruby's eyes, her little brother again, barking at the monsters to retreat, dragging her straight back to that long-ago nightmare. She remembered how he clutched her tiny hand so tight, promising she could handle anything, and even the animals backed off when his voice cut through the fear. Then he begged her to stop crying, soothed her until her breathing steadied, and swore he'd always be there. That girl leaned in and whispered one small, powerful word, hero, and her eyes clouded with painful childhood memories when her little brother stood up for her, ready to take on any threat. Ruby cradled his head against her chest, whispering, "I'll wait," and promising she'd be there when her brother came back. That promise became their new lifeline, locking their bond in place tighter than ever. Now he had to blast through every obstacle, earn his sister's trust, and race to catch up with her, showing the whole world and himself that he could finally become a real hero. Helio clicked his tongue in pure irritation, glaring at the boy's book with disgust, while the boy could only watch, eyes heavy, as the carriage hauled his beloved relative farther and farther away. Ratsy's heart sank after the failure, because he'd broken his first promise to his sister, the one about becoming adventurers together, and that sting turned into steel as he swore he'd succeed no matter what, smashing through every obstacle in his path. Even with the weakest artifact in his hands, a battered old rusty sword, the kind that screamed his own weakness, he refused to quit. With his sword held high over his head, the young man roared that one day he'd become more than an adventurer. He'd turn into a real hero, worthy of the world's best fighters. His sister finally clocked it. This wasn't some heroic story from the books. Her brother was nothing like that, fragile and heartbreakingly sensitive, and tears kept spilling from him. He had no real artifact that could boost his power, yet for her he still stood as the one and only hero. Led by fearless heroine Paludi, a band of brave adventurers stormed into battle against a massive, bloodthirsty monster. With grit in their hearts, they yanked out their sharp blades, ready to cut down any enemy that dared to strike. The monster charged toward the team without slowing down, snarling like a nightmare as it flashed razor fangs and clawed threats. The girls leaned in, talking Ruby down with warm reassurance, telling her the enemy wasn't some monster at all, just small, controllable, and totally beatable. Paludi said it like a verdict. Real monsters don't show up near villages. They vanish far away from any human settlement. The girl clung to the sword's hilt with shaking hands, and you could see her nerves screaming. She could barely hold back the tremor running through her body. Fear clenched her muscles, her breathing came in ragged bursts, and her heart hammered like it wanted out. Then the group commander snapped his gaze to her, seeing the recruit's condition. The hero fired back that real heroes don't fear monsters like that, so Ruby looked down, cheeks burning, and confessed she was embarrassed by how green she was, terrified her opponent had a trick up their sleeve. The new recruit told everyone she'd come here a lot before, playing with the village kids, and that this place is packed with old, warm memories that hit her with a sweet, aching wave of nostalgia. The lady leaned in with sympathy and asked the girl if she was scared for her younger brother, left all alone at home. Ruby didn't fully answer. Her smile and her eyes did the talking, like she was quietly questioning if she even believed herself. One adventurer in the group stared into the forest and realized there weren't any dangerous monsters, so he couldn't understand how kids could even play here, until the other girl smiled and said she was always protected. She pressed again, demanding to know exactly who was guarding her. Ruby shot back a proud smile, blazing with the truth that he'd earned the title of real hero. The sister was sweeping the yard when she snapped, "What are you doing here?" at her younger brother. Ratsu shot back that starting today he'd be his sister's right-hand man on the farm, because he'd grown up under his mom's strict hand, and now it was time to step up, prove himself, and get to work. The girl tugged his memory, shoved his old rusty sword into his hands, and reminded him he'd forgotten something important. She leaned in and asked if he wanted to become an adventurer, and after a tense pause, he finally nodded, unsure but in. Ruby said once he chose to become an adventurer, he couldn't afford to waste a single second on farming. His sister leaned in and demanded a promise. If danger struck out of nowhere, he had to run, no questions asked. Ratsu finally got it, how much he owed his mother, and Ruby too, and as he strode down a forest path, he spotted the adventure's carriage tracks waiting ahead. That young man swore, with iron certainty, that he'd become an adventurer too, no matter how far ahead his older sister ran. Swallowed by memories of wild childhood adventures, the young man suddenly snapped his head up. Something eerie was making noise nearby. A creepy root burst out of the thick bushes, and it was inching closer like it had a target. A colossal ancient tree just burst into existence behind him, like it had been waiting in the shadows. When he turned, he finally saw the menacing Trent right in front of him, and the worst part was realizing Trent had slipped in without him even noticing. The ancient giant snapped its massive roots around the boy's leg in an instant. Ratsu lunged to escape, but the grip wouldn't budge. Then the mighty tree yanked him off its roots and slammed him away with a brutal strike. With every twist of agony, the boy finally understood. This wasn't a scare anymore, it was real danger, and the monstrous thing kept roaring out terrifying sounds. The young man clenched his sword by the hilt and charged ahead, remembering his promise. He would catch up to his sister no matter what. Bloodied from head to toe, he stumbled back to the village. Right there, the stern sisters demanded, "So you ran off like we agreed," and the guy nodded with total confidence. The very next morning, no matter what happened, that young man marched straight back into battle against the same terrifying monster. The young warrior slammed his blade straight into the ancient Trent's roots, pouring every last ounce of strength and stubborn will into that one devastating strike. Luck betrayed him again. His sword was so dull it looked like nothing more than a plain wooden club, and the frustration hit him hard. On the third day, the boys showed up again to fight that tree monster, and the other kids who passed by stared in total confusion, wondering why he kept trying to beat something that looked totally pointless. Then the fourth day finally crashed in, and the young heroes kept fighting that rebellious tree monster with the same wild fire and unshakable zeal. The fifth day crashed in, and nothing changed, so the young wrestler threw everything he had at the enemy, but it barely made a dent. 3 years have crashed by, and the world feels totally different now. One day, two young girls were chatting up a storm by the road, and one leaned in and asked why her friend still hadn't ditched her hometown for a better life, while the other hesitated, then admitted she was weighing how to find the right job first. The first one leaned in, sympathizing like, the capital's packed with fresh vacancies, and right as they started talking, a massive root from a nearby old tree started shifting and blocked their conversation. They were absolutely terrified. A massive Trent crashed into view before the girls, roaring to attack, but Ratsu tore in beside them, braving the danger head-on and gearing up to jump straight into the fight. With a lightning-quick, deft move, the boys struck the giant tree and tore it apart in a brutal rush of damage. The young man told them, that monster got within striking distance of the village, but it's gone now, and nobody got hurt. The first girl snapped her arrow loose and drilled it dead center, straight into the tree. The second girl lit up with real joy over her friend's win against the monster, cheering like she'd personally conquered it. Then she spun to the guy, checked if he was hurt, and thanked him from the bottom of her heart for backing them up. 3 long years had slipped by since Ruby vanished from her home village. Now Ratsu was laser-focused on one burning question. Just how close was he to finally catching up to his sister? 3 years of brutal training, and it only got him to level 10, no more, no less, and that crushing disappointment made him wonder if he was just talentless. Caught in his own doubts and the sting of feeling way behind his sister, the young man's eyes accidentally landed on 2 guys loading up firewood, then selling it to the villagers. One brother shot Ratsu a sarcastic look, demanding to know why he'd kept training for 3 long years, like it wasn't obvious his efforts were pointless. The boy clung to his sister's advice, swearing she'd patiently wait for him to come back. Fed up with sitting there, drowning in thoughts about how far his sister had already sprinted ahead and that he'd never catch up, he finally dropped off to sleep. Just as the young man jolted awake, he spotted the child in a split-second peril, and he bolted forward without thinking, ready to snatch him to safety. He couldn't stop worrying about the child. What if they'd gotten lost in here? Suddenly, a tiny, fragile girl stumbled into his path, looking just like a younger Ruby, shaking with pure terror of the forest monsters. He could still see it like it happened yesterday, when his sister vanished into the forest, and he watched, terrified, as she teetered on the edge of becoming prey for the forest monsters. The boy snapped into action, knowing he had to rush in and save the day. Then, out of nowhere, a tiny Ratsu charged at the enemy with fearless speed. She blared the command for the monsters to fall back, keeping them away from the girl, while his shout instantly rattled the enemies, filling them with fear. Little Ratsu yanked his sister's hand and dragged her away just as danger reared up. The young man instantly clocked it. This was a flashback to his own childhood, where the kid version of the hero wrapped his arms around a sobbing girl and promised her everything was finished. The monsters were gone for good. The kid pleaded with Ruby to stop crying. Then Ruby snapped back, "I'm not crying," like she couldn't believe they even thought she was. Seeing that younger version of himself stand tall and protect his sister, the young man finally cracked the truth. This wasn't magic at all, just a plain wooden stick that saved them both. A little girl snapped her gaze on him and declared, with total confidence, that he was going to become a real cool hero. She grinned and said she couldn't wait for that amazing day, then vowed she'd keep waiting, no matter how long it took. When he jolted awake, he realized the whole thing he'd lived through was only a wild, vivid dream. Ratsu gripped the sword, looked his sister in the eyes, and swore she'd wait, because he would hunt her down and catch up no matter what. As soon as he rose, he heard a shaky cry nearby, and figured he was still trapped in a dream. Soon the young man finally realized this wasn't a dream. Then panic hit and he had to move fast. Spotting a little girl nearby, he rushed up, breathless, and demanded to know if she was okay. The young man stared at the horrifying monster looming in front of him, completely frozen. He had no clue how to beat something this powerful, or why it had shown up here in the first place. Demons don't just exist like other creatures. They think circles around everyone, like humans chosen by the gods and gifted sacred artifacts, and on top of that, dark deities load them up with special items. They're humanity's sworn enemies, and they don't miss. 2 familiar guys stood side by side, glaring at each other with pure distrust, stunned that a beast this powerful had shown up in a place like this. The moment they clocked the danger, the brothers sprang to their feet and bolted for their lives. Ratsu lunged to stop them, yelling his plan as loud as he could, but they wouldn't hear a word, because to them, the only sensible move was to vanish fast and hide. The young man flared with rage, demanding they could not possibly dump the girl for a monster to rip apart while they just bolted, and when he pushed back, one of them shrugged that any resistance was pointless since the enemy was a demon, while the other said they should rush straight to the village guards because this was the first priority. The first one declared this: when you crush someone, the demon doesn't just win, he drinks in that victory and powers up, growing stronger and stronger like humans do after every triumph. Plus, that monster wipes the whole group out with zero sweat, like it's effortless. Ratsu snapped in outrage that while she waited for the guard, the demon would shrug off any chance and tear into her, especially since that kid had a special weapon that could force an unfair, one-sided duel with a creature like that. But he couldn't help sounding doubtful, claiming the artifact in his hands was only a lowly D rank, and that crushed any hope of winning the fight. One guy snapped that what they found wasn't meant for a real fight, while the other swore that if they didn't warn the guards in time, the settlement's people would be in grave danger. Then they bickered for a second, and both vanished fast out of sight. The young man strapped on his gear with total focus, slipped into the thick jungle, and watched the terrifying enemy from the shadows, eyes locked, ready to strike. The little girl trembled with pure, gut-wrenching terror, feeling death closing in like it was already written. The stunned boy stared in horror as the tragedy unfolded right in front of him. Meanwhile, the monster sneered that squeezing even a tiny boost from someone so insignificant sounded like a fun little warm-up. Then it declared, "Now you're going to die." Without a second thought, the brave young man burst from his hiding spot and barked at the demon to back off, right now, away from the child. The creature swung its head around, slow, suspicious, trying to figure out what wild words were creeping out from behind the trees. The hero kept hammering his ultimatum, demanding they leave the girl alone, again and again and again. The monster flashed a smug grin and demanded, "Say it again," claiming the hero's voice was too quiet, something he said he couldn't understand, even though it was all just a taunt. With a desperate battle cry, the young man came barreling forward again, shouting that same demand to free the captive girl. With one brutal swipe from its massive palm, the monster slammed the teenager's clumsy attack to a stop. The guy was absolutely blown away, like his brain just hit a wall. The demon let out a smug chuckle, then admitted he'd first tossed the weapon aside as mere junk, until he finally saw it for what it truly was, a sacred treasure. That find made the monster erupt in uncontrollable laughter. With nothing left to prove, the creature flaunted its artifact to make sure everyone understood who's truly superior. And just to prove a point, he decided to show exactly what his sword could unleash. The young man snapped still in awe, staring at the image that burst into view in front of him. With the finishing blow ready to land, the demon unleashed a brutal swing, and a wave of destructive energy tore through everything in its path. With a cruel grin, the monster reveled in his claim. This energy was the real proof of his power. Grief ripped through the girl as she begged someone, anyone, to save her. Ratsu, tense as a wire, clocked it instantly. His opponent had monster-level potential, the kind his brave sister fights every single day. The hero knew his weakness to the bone, and when he stared down absolute evil, panic kicked in as he frantically plotted, "Buy time, hold the line, and wait for reinforcements in the form of guards." Then a shadowy creature burst from behind him, grinning as it demanded where the young man's courage had disappeared to. The monster couldn't wait to tear into the hated boy, turning that murder into a wild ritual celebration. With a brutal heave, the beast flung the boy like a weapon, sending him soaring through the sky and miles away from the battlefield. A deafening crack tore through the air, and Ratsu's agony snapped into a heartbreaking scream as excruciating pain ripped through him. He knew, for the monster's sake, that he wouldn't get a powerful blessing out of this little girl. The forest reeked with the scent of people, like human footsteps were right around the corner, so it meant a village was close by. The monster fixated on the village like it owed him blessings, then vowed to haul in as many as he could. He snapped and decided he'd wipe out everyone in the village. The demon grinned and went straight for the closest little enemies first. Suddenly, Ratsu erupted into sharp, shrill screams, shredding the calm with cries that cut like knives. He sprinted forward, gripping the weapon in both hands like his life depended on it. Then he hurled himself at the demon, fighting with everything he had to save the child, no matter what it cost him. Turns out the monster wasn't just strong, it was razor-fast, zipping in like lightning, and with a clean counter, it shrugged off the enemy's hit before the attack could land. The demon grudgingly called the young man's strike worthy of praise, because courage and skill were there, but the fight's ending was already locked in, and it wouldn't take long before it all came to a brutal finish. He promised the heroic fish he'd see him later, and the boy fought like his life depended on it, barely keeping the sharp blade from striking again and again. The young man's sword started to crumble in his grip, breaking down into a pile of rubble before he could even stop it. With one jaw-dropping lunge, the creature slammed Ratsu sideways so hard he rocketed across a huge distance. Bruised and bleeding, the young man crumpled to the ground, mouth gaping as he choked on air, while the demon calmly promised it would finish him the moment it was done with the girl. Crushed on the icy ground, the boy choked on regret and begged Ruby to forgive him, because once again, he'd failed to keep the promise he swore to her. Guilt and shame ripped his soul to shreds, because the two promises that mattered most were never kept, and the first one crashed into a humiliating defeat. The second one, built on the idea that he could catch up with that girl, turned out to be just as impossible. Only one thought warmed the young man's heart. Maybe this amazing girl didn't hold a grudge against him at all. He knew right in that moment that only he could shield that child. The demon spun around, and there stood a boy teetering on the edge of collapse, ready to throw himself away just to save someone else. Ratsu blared his plan to crush the enemy, and the next moment turned into a non-stop clash of furious back-and-forth attacks, pure adrenaline and iron determination driving both fighters. A thunderous impact cracked through the whole area as two razor blades slammed together with jaw-dropping force. Even with all his grit, the boy's sword crumbled fast. Its blade warped, lost its shape, and shattered into a scatter of tiny fragments. The huge monster couldn't figure out why that cocky kid's weapon suddenly changed shape, and that confusion sparked equal parts rage and dread in its chest. Ratsu's hands were now forged into a cursed S-rank magic blade, packed with divine power and plus 500 boosts to strength, agility, endurance, and durability and magical power, and it even lets the owner perform artifact synthesis. The monster was totally baffled because the artifact, and even the boy himself, had mysteriously transformed right in front of its eyes. Only now did the young hero finally feel the moment hit like lightning. The mask slipped, and his loyal ally's true face stared back, not hidden behind some flimsy weapon anymore. With that truth revealed, the road to victory suddenly felt within reach. A wild surge of energy tore through him like a thunderstorm, electrifying every muscle and nerve, and for a split second pure power and unshakable confidence erupted from his chest, fueling him straight into the decisive battle. The demon didn't even pause. He surged forward and slammed into his target with a lightning-fast strike. Even with that terrifying power on the line, the boys shut down the giants, rage on the spot, just stood their ground and took the hit without breaking a sweat. But the giant creature hated it, watching that confident young man stare him down, eyes burning from head to toe like he was being measured. The monster barked for the truth about everything they knew, snarling, "And don't stare at me like that." Ratsu remembered how he'd been talking about this from the exact start. The young fighter erupted into a lightning-fast, no-mercy surprise strike, slicing straight into the giant's flesh and carving a brutal, unmistakable mark across his entire front. Even with his non-stop warnings, the monster's massive size and savage temper kept him from ever truly grasping what the conversation was trying to say. Then the young man pushed back at the enemy's mind again and again, firing off the same blunt plea, "Leave the child alive, and don't come any closer." He stared at what just happened, totally stunned, his mind scrambling for answers, because he couldn't figure out how everything spiraled into this. Once the ancient artifact's real form snapped into place, it unleashed waves of pure energy that tore into the owner's body and flooded him with supernatural power, pushing his abilities way beyond anything he'd ever shown before. Even though everything looked doomed, he had one truth locked in: he wasn't backing down. Every part of him screamed no to defeat, and he kept pushing forward, hunting for a way out of that nightmare. The colossal beast swallowed the battlefield, looming right behind the youth, poised to slam down another crushing blow. A furious voice thundered across the battlefield, calling the young daredevil mad and his actions pure nonsense, because that senseless attack could only spark one thing: the ferocious demon's absolute fury. Even though that hit hurt like hell, the demon brushed it off like it was nothing, just a tiny scratch. The demon let out a thunderous roar and demanded he vanish from his life, then instantly tore into his opponent with a non-stop barrage of crushing punches, hammering hit after hit to shatter his guard, until brutal blows rained down, tearing deep wounds and driving Ratsu back, step after step. Unfazed, the young warrior planted his feet and charged back into another ruthless barrage, forcing the demon to face the worst pain it could handle, because every time he landed a clean strike, that massive beast would howl in agony. Suddenly, the creature got swallowed by choking black smoke that burst into blazing flames, and those savage tongues of fire crawled straight out of the magically charged sword, powered by the young hero's brutal, heavy hits. As he basked in how strong he was, confidence surged through the young man's veins, while the monster froze in shock, realizing the mystical black flame it thought was gone for good had returned. Sudden instinct hit Ritsu. He clamped down on the ancient blade, snapped his arm forward like lightning, and rammed the tip into the demon's weak spot, slicing clean through its entire torso. Shocked by the collapse, the monster racked his brain, trying to figure out how something so low could overpower him. And once the truth hit, his demon body dimmed, flickered, and slowly unraveled into nothing until he vanished from reality. The boy let out a relieved breath, thinking the brutal struggle was finally over. Then the sky turned thick and gray, rain hammered down in heavy drops, and the fresh wash of water somehow made the tension in his chest feel like it was finally being wiped clean. The young man crumpled onto the wet ground, wiped out in body and spirit, and the little girl he'd saved from the monster bolted toward him, sprinting up with quick, urgent steps. She leaned in, worried sick, and asked whether her brother was really feeling okay. Ratsu's consciousness started clawing its way back. The moment he snapped back into himself, he realized he wasn't trapped anywhere. He was home, sprawled in his own bed, breathing in that familiar comfort like it was calling him back. The mother burst into the room, face full of worry, and demanded if her son had truly come to, then explained that the guards, the ones they'd found in the forest, were the ones who dragged him back here. The boy sank into his thoughts, replaying the moment the guards found him, and the strange voice that reached out, calling him brother like it meant something. Then the young man tried to ask what happened to the girl, but the mother snapped in immediately, shutting him down and telling him everything was fine, right away. The boy let out a shaky sigh of relief, and his mother kept the tale going, confessing that for 3 brutal years she'd been praying to see her son alive and safe at last, now that he'd finally stopped charging into battles with deadly creatures. Her parents once clawed through crushing poverty, scraping by in misery, until they turned to farming, and life finally steadied, then blossomed into real prosperity. She was relieved she didn't stop her son from throwing himself into battle against those deadly monsters. After everything, the girl he saved broke down in happy tears and thanked him like her whole world had just been saved too. Her eyes shone with pride as she confessed, "I watch my son grow every single day. He wasn't just getting stronger, he was learning to make smart choices, stepping up with courage and treating people with kindness until he finally became the real man she'd always hoped for." Overwhelmed by gratitude and respect, his heart started pounding as hot tears nearly spilled into his eyes. His beloved mother's heartfelt message had him breaking. Then she snapped her focus to her son and fired off a serious question. She needed to know if he was really going to take the exams required to become an official, professional adventurer. Ratsu nodded along with the exam's importance and stepped into the official path of an adventure hunter. Yet he knew he couldn't just run away from home, because his mother still needed him every day, and her safety depended on his steady support. Suddenly, the woman surged closer, crushed her son to her chest, and in a soft voice demanded the one promise that mattered most. She pleaded with the boy, begging him to spare her life and not to walk away before she could stop him. "And we've got to step in, help the regular folks, shield them, and go all out to defend them from every threat." Tears streamed down his cheeks as he blurted out a vow to follow his mother's advice. Then he confessed how proud he was of her and how endlessly grateful he felt for having her. She also piled on strict rules: come see her twice a year, stash every coin he earned, stick to his diet, and never crawl into bed with a full stomach. And the young man couldn't help blurting out if all of it was meant to count as one single promise. 3 years have already burned since Ruby walked away, and now Ratsu's journey finally ignites. He's headed for White Rondo, the city packed with dream-chasing adventurers, and he's declaring it with pure confidence. He'll crush the exam and earn his spot as an adventurer. His sword had swung back on him again, and now it was rusty too, like it had changed its mind, leaving him staring in shock, wondering why. He felt totally awkward when the boys who'd vanished from that legendary duel turned their battlefield courage into a scabbard for him as an apology, and getting a gift that wild left him both flattered and mortified. Ratsu refused to leave any stone unturned. He had to dig into every detail of his magic sword's hidden power, the mysterious ability, evolution, the kind of move that could flip the whole fight and unlock brand new possibilities for the blade. To trigger the evolution ability, the blade's hidden sacred artifact has to unleash its true form first. Then, and only then, can the special effect ignite, burning the fighting spirit like wildfire. He suddenly understood what fighting spirit really meant when despair swallowed him whole, and he still fought tooth and nail against a crushing demon. That young man pumped the same promise through his head. He'd become a real adventurer, a heroic shield, ready to fight for his mother and his beloved sister, Ruby, and that fire in his chest drove him onward, knocking down every obstacle to reach his dream. Suddenly his blade shifted forms, twisting into a whole new shape, and the sword instantly looked even more terrifying, like pure majesty forged in steel. Ratsu suddenly snapped to it. If he activated the skill in this weird, offbeat way, he could make the blade reshape on his own, and that hit him like a lightning bolt of confidence, because he realized he could steer the sword's power not just in panic, but on purpose, aiming it exactly where he needed. Staring at the sword's strange new form, the young man murmured that it looked like something an ancient demon forged, his voice staying calm while his eyes widened with surprise, guarded caution, and a spark of curiosity. He studied his brand new blade side by side with the demon's sword he'd just wiped out, and the match was terrifying. The blade shape, the handle patterns, even the glow coming off both swords looked nearly identical. The guard swooped in with both swords in hand, because he couldn't tell which blade was really the hero's, so chaos brewed for a moment, until the young man clocked what was going on and picked his own sword. Turns out the boy can now spot the traits of all sorts of artifacts, so he tests it on the monster's dropped weapon, only to discover it's the asterisk Great Sword of Black Flame asterisk, and it's rocking an impressive asterisk B rank asterisk. He didn't dare leave the sword behind, so he grabbed it and took it with him. But when the moment came to fight, he realized it was a bad idea to wield someone else's artifact, because every one of these blades has its own will and a bond to its rightful owner, and that connection can't be forged on the spot. Suddenly, the blade yanked out of his hands and shot upward like it was alive, desperate to break free of the world. Then the second sword copied the first, blasting up into the air right after it, leaving the guy staring in total shock, clueless what triggered these two crazy artifacts, and fighting to make sense of how such an insane event was even happening. He froze in real shock as the blade from the demons he'd just beaten slowly broke down and fused into his own weapon, and the unbelievable sight hit him so hard it sparked instant confusion and raw anxiety. With a violent snap, his sword drove straight into the ground, and the young owner just froze, dazed, speechless, and scrambling to understand why his own weapon had turned on him like that. The boy slowly lifted his cursed S-rank magic sword, and the moment he touched it, he knew something huge had changed. This blade felt different, pulsing with a strange aura that grabbed everyone's eyes. He couldn't believe it. After slaying that demon, his sword stats unlocked a brand new skill called Asterisk Black Flame Asterisk, and the blade suddenly gained real magic power, plus the ability to synthesize sacred weapons, turning his fights into something way bigger. This kid was totally stumped by his brand new skill, no clue what kind of power synthesis even held, and he knew he had to dig into it deeper fast, so he could truly master what his one-of-a-kind weapon was capable of. Artifact synthesis lets you forge a sacred artifact while you're backed by an evil god's blessing, turning that sacred power into your strength. Once he gets hold of the magic from those forged artifacts, he can unleash it too, but only on sacred treasures he hasn't already equipped. He honestly believed synthesis was a mind-blowing gift, because that demon he just beat had the black flame, and now he'd jammed that magic straight into his own artifact, supercharging his powers and unlocking a brand new kind of attack. He even thought his sword was a total cheat code. Sure, it only ranked at 500, but it somehow blew past normal gear, packing way more power and advantages than anything else at the same level. Suddenly, a familiar twisted root from an ancient tree burst out of the thick brush like it had been hiding there all along. Then it hit him this wasn't one tree at all. It was an entire army of giant, living trents rushing out to block the traveler, trunks towering and swaying like threats, as the whole pack roared and screamed to terrify him. The young man snapped into action. He shoved off the ground with his feet and sprang backward, slipping out of the sudden danger at the last second. With lightning-fast reflexes, he slipped past the enemy's strike, snatched the proven blade in one clean grab, and stepped into the fight, knowing danger was waiting around every single corner. The boy bowed and grabbed his sword, begging it to teach him mastery of the black flame magic. Then he snapped into action and shoved a ruthless burst of energy straight at the oncoming enemies, praying it would smash their assault long enough for him to regroup and maneuver. A brutal blast of dark energy slammed into the trents, instantly scorching their bodies as the mighty trunks erupted into roaring torches. Then the magical fire chewed through everything, leaving only a burned-out wasteland and scattering the furious tree army. Blinding flashes ripped across the sky, and the ancient trents' bodies shattered as their tortured cries thundered through the forest. Relief hit him like a wave, and real joy lit up his chest, because the black flame's magic wasn't a myth anymore. It actually works, and now it's his whenever he needs it. Just as he was riding high on jubilation, a brutal blow struck him out of nowhere, snatching the joy away and crashing him into sharp pain and gut-twisting panic. He seized his head with both hands as it thrashed in agony, totally lost as to what was even happening. His skull felt like it was splitting, his mind went foggy, and then a gut-punching screech of wood tore through the air nearby. Blinding, savage headache slammed into Ratsu's skull until it felt almost impossible to breathe. So he snapped his eyes to his sword, desperate to find out whether what he was feeling was tied to the weapon's recent changes. The young man snapped to the terrifying truth in an instant. Those brutal headaches weren't random at all, because a curse had been laid on his precious weapon. The tree suddenly woke up, locked eyes with the boy, and lunged to grab him in a tight wooden embrace to capture its victim. The young man crumpled on the ground, writhing in brutal agony, and it hit him. Stuck like this, there was no way to dodge the deadly strike coming for him. Every ounce of strength drained out, and his hope slipped away right along with his fading consciousness. Suddenly, a stern voice snapped at him to freeze, and just like that, the wind whipped up a storm of dust that swallowed the whole area. It was the girl who slammed herself between danger and him, wrapping it all up behind that massive shield, asking in a shaky voice if he was okay, while he, half-dazed, finally rasped out, barely alive enough to speak, who exactly his savior was. Bursting out of the dark forest, the young man finally stepped into White Rondo, and it hit him like a dream come true. Bustling streets, roaring markets, and that non-stop adventures around the corner vibe that screamed he was about to chase something legendary. When he turned his eyes to the Adventurers Guild building, he nearly stopped in his tracks. Its size was jaw-dropping, and it felt like a genuinely grand monument. This is the moment his real adventurer journey kicks off, packed with brutal trials, jaw-dropping discoveries, and dizzying adventures that will flip his destiny forever. He refused to waste a second, shoved the heavy wooden doors wide, and strode into the guild building, ready to meet whatever his future threw at him. Right in front of him, a massive crowd erupted into view, every breath in the air buzzing with energy, anticipation, and the promise that his next adventure was about to begin. Suddenly, the young man snapped to it. Every single person packed in here was taking the adventurer exam, and that realization hit him like a wave, because the crowd of candidates was way bigger than he'd ever expected. Ratsu couldn't stop thinking about that nasty rumor. This exam's success rate was always under 1%, and if you bombed it, you'd be stuck waiting a whole 6 months for the next chance, which was brutal for an ambitious adventurer who refused to waste time. No matter what hit him, he refused to doubt himself. His grit kept roaring, until he decided to muscle through every nightmare and finally earn his spot in the Adventurers' Brotherhood and start his real career. He swore he'd become an adventurer just like his sister, Ruby, until his own memory slammed back, the girl who'd saved him, checking on him after that monster ripped through the forest. She made it crystal clear, hand the whole mess over to her, then sprint away before anything else goes wrong. He couldn't stop wondering who she was, and whether some battle-hardened adventurer had hauled himself here, risking his life to save a total stranger. He remembered staring in shock at her massive shield, so brutally tough it screamed, rare artifact, far beyond any normal protection. Just like that, the headache vanished, pure relief. Then his lost energy surged back, snapping him right into his old strength and pushing him to act again. Ratsu stared in shock as his battered old sword snapped back to its usual shape. The weird changes vanished, and it looked totally ordinary again. He was convinced that this cursed magic sword was the real, true form of that mysterious artifact. The young man snatched his trusty blade in an instant, charged straight for the danger, and went in determined to prove himself in a fair fight. The stranger lunged to stop him, straight up doubting the boy could survive the danger with just some crappy rusty sword, because she knew this was a desperate shot, doomed before it even started. The boy sliced that massive Trent clean in half in the blink of an eye, and it rattled the girl with pure shock, because the rusty sword in his hands didn't just swing, it mutated into a brutally sinister artifact, far beyond anything she could understand. The girl leaned in and asked if the boy was really okay, and he nodded back, saying he was fine, then thanked her from the bottom of his heart for showing up in time and saving him. Ratsu admitted the special artifact was draining him, and right when it mattered most, the adventurer saw his sword flash into a whole new look, revealing powers and features no one had ever seen before. Suddenly he froze. He realized he hadn't even introduced himself yet, then blurted, "I'm Ratsu Sutin." After a brief pause, the girl blurted out, loud and fearless, "My name is Dayakaratsu," and her cheeks flushed hard from how bold she'd just been. She said she had to go and peppered him with one question, "What's next for the boy?" The boy answered straight up. He was going to take a moment to rest and refill his strength after everything he just survived. The time to part finally arrived, and the heroine flashed a warm smile, holding on to the unforgettable meeting that taught everyone the real power of friendship and helping each other. As he said goodbye to the girl, it hit him hard. Someone had been quietly helping him for his whole life. But it only lasted until today. Then everything snapped into place, and the young man swore he'd become a shield for everyone he loves, dedicating his life to justice and to protecting the weak. And then it hit him everywhere he looked. People were carrying special artifacts, and with one glance he could instantly read what each one could do. Out of nowhere, a furious voice erupted from the crowd, blasting everyone for being rude and too distracted to care, and the whole piece went up in smoke. Turns out this little girl got caught in the guild visitor's path, stumbling straight into the busy human crowd, and everyone stared in confusion, like, why would a kid be here in a place this dangerous? Climbing up onto the stage, the girl blared, "I'm Janet Chamu, an examiner." Even with her childish look, she made it crystal clear. She'd already gone through the blessing ceremony, proving she was legit and earned her spot as an adult examiner. One of the dudes in the crowd fumed that it was totally ridiculous for a female employee to be judging a kid. Janet leaned in and warned them. Today's test would be held in the deadly Nanashiki forest, and every candidate had to track down a special doll she'd prepared just for this competition. They got the gist, grab a normal toy doll, but half the crew scoffed, calling it too basic and questioning if the test was even real. The examiner made it sound like a warning. This forest is crawling with nasty kobolds who love snatching anything they can from people, so she figured those sought-after dolls had been snapped up long ago by greedy little thieves. Ratsu suddenly realized this exam zone wasn't harmless. It was packed with monsters, and the test wouldn't just be about spotting things, but about backing it up with real combat skills. So yeah, that adventurer exam wasn't going to be a walk in the park. The girl jumped in with new warnings. Besides the kobolds, the forest is packed with other deadly creatures too, so the safety of the candidates rests on their shoulders alone, and she made it crystal clear. The dolls they're hunting are limited in number. He finally clocked it. This exam wasn't just a test. It was about to explode into a full-on showdown where every participant fought tooth and nail for rare dolls, and only the toughest rivalries and competition mattered. In the end, the winner would be the one who proved they had both the heart to lead and the grit to survive. Janet warned them that killing rivals was a crime, but the young men still had to square up with the renegades, so the boy clenched his thoughts and tried to picture just how savage and unpredictable those encounters would be. Renegades are the ones who used their artifact powers for evil and turned on the rules, siding with the dark side of the law. And if you're in this exam, you won't just have to ace the searching challenge, you'll also have to fight these deadly opponents head-on. The girl kept talking, explaining that from now on, future adventurers could team up and tackle the tests together, but every single group still had to hunt down enough dolls to cover every last member. With so many different ideas, ranks, and wild ambitions chasing the title of adventurer, Ratsu didn't know if he could even land a partner worth teaming up with. Janet wrapped up the briefing and made it crystal clear. You've got exactly 2 hours to finish the job, then the exam officially kicks off. Suddenly, one guy barked, praising the beast of an artifact in the other's hands, and offered to team up, forming an alliance to smash every problem together. They clasped hands hard, eyes locked, and vowed they'd muscle through every obstacle and crush that brutal test to reach success. Ratsu couldn't stop wondering if anyone would actually team up with him, especially after his own sword, once activated, morphed into something sinister, like it belonged to a demonic artifact. Suddenly, a sharp, loud scream ripped through the air, yanking his attention and snapping him into full alert. A furious voice was blasting at the familiar girl, Dea, while she desperately pleaded to be led into the group, so the boy immediately clocked it. She was likely in that competition too, and she needed her comrades behind her to boost her odds. The girl got hit with a non-stop barrage of vicious remarks from another contestant, who couldn't understand why she'd even team up with someone so obviously useless and incapable of pulling their weight. Watching Dea get humiliated made Ratsu snap. He remembered every time people told him he'd never be a hero or an adventurer, dismissing his grit as not good enough, and that memory hit him so hard his sympathy for the girl in front of that hostile crowd turned sharp and real. That criticizing girl kept hammering her attacks, bragging that real adventurers wipe out demons, while she just stood there with a shield artifact that couldn't even scratch a single demon. Then she smirked and asked if she even believed she could become an adventurer with gear that weak. The boy clenched his fists so hard his knuckles ached, fighting to keep his anger from exploding, while the criticizing candidate kept talking, claiming the exam was all about killing monsters, and then smirked and asked, in a doubting tone, if Dea could even win one toy doll in the real competition. She snapped that if those other candidates wouldn't even talk to her, then she wouldn't bother expecting their help just because they both came from the same village, and before she could finish, she was already trying to push back. She lost control, then her voice cracked and her hand shot up, aiming straight at Dea. But at the last second, Ratsu exploded into motion and snapped her attacker's wrist away, stopping a disaster before it could happen. He snatched her hand mid-motion and locked eyes with the girl, her face blazing with irritation and open hostility, eyes throwing sparks of indignation while her lips clenched hard, like she was fighting every emotion at once. The young man snapped in immediately, furious that anyone would treat someone like that and drawing a hard line under it, no decency left. The attacker clocked the stranger stepping in, shot him a savage glare and barked, "Who are you?" Dea lit up the moment she spotted her friend, and the sharp girl immediately clocked that they were close, so when a third party crashed the moment, she snapped, marched right up, and demanded to know what he was doing here. He shot his girlfriend a warm smile and practically invited her to join his team right on the spot. When she heard the proposal, fury slammed into her like a punch. She called it absurd and stupid, her face twisting with pure disgust, and her voice shaking with indignation as she basically accused him of having no common sense or seriousness about it. Ratsu leaned in and told her he'd finally found the perfect match of her gifts, then invited his friend to join him, saying he was thrilled to see his savior again, and watching her attacker go from shock to furious irritation. The guys from the neighboring team sneered that she was only trying to work with some guy who couldn't even beat a basic monster, and then they roasted him harder, saying his artifact was so ruined it was basically drowning in rust. Janet reports this year's packed with talented kids who look set for a huge future, yet right alongside the standouts, there are also kids who could turn dangerous fast, and for the ones most likely to take risks, the organization is ready to step in and back them. It's only been 30 minutes since the exam started, but it already feels like time is racing. The boys stared in shock. This forest looked way too peaceful. Sunbeams danced through the leaves, throwing out a wild 7-color shimmer like a treasured gemstone, and you could almost forget monsters even existed. If they weren't running the place, this would have been a tourist hotspot. Ratsu thought they could dodge monster fights for once, but nope, that wish is dead on arrival. They've got to track down those kobolds ASAP. He couldn't stop thinking, what if she was embarrassed to work with him, maybe even insecure or just plain uncomfortable? At the same time, she kept trying to speak up, but the words got trapped in her throat, choking her off before she could explain what she really felt. Dea asked, voice shaking, what he meant when he said they were perfect for each other, like the words had dug straight into her fear and she couldn't hide what she was feeling. Staring at his girlfriend's confused face, the young man finally got it. She twisted his friendly words and read them like a love confession. The young man tried to lay it all out for her, proving they were a perfect match because they balanced each other so well. Then bam, she snapped his sentence in half with a piercing scream, warning that a giant monster was about to show up. She snapped up a shield with lightning speed, locking it in place to keep Ratsu safe from any enemy strike that came at him. The boy locked in on the fight, yanked his trusty sword free with confidence, and prepared to unleash every skill he had to crush the enemy. After wiping out yet another monster, the young man finally gets it. She's got his back, so he can go all in, lock onto every enemy, and secure the win. That teamwork is pure symbiosis, turning every fight into a deadly, maximum efficiency showdown. He explained that using the cursed sword too often gives you crushing headaches, so the guy can only swing it for about half an hour before it starts to wreck him. If you push past the limit, you're playing with your mind, because the odds of going completely insane skyrocket. With his girlfriend standing guard, he could finally throw himself into the fight and focus on nothing but winning, so Dea gasped, shocked, and asked if he really believed she could protect him. She'd been a target for so long, sniffling through endless teasing, that when team tryouts came around, most guys flat out shut her out, calling her too weak and useless for team competitions. As he stepped closer, the guy made it clear. Her artifact might not pack combat power, but her kind heart and the drive to help others made her special. Comrade listened in stunned silence, clearly not ready for anyone to judge her like that. The young man wrapped up his speech by saying, "That's why she's strong. She'll crush every obstacle and reach success, no matter what life throws her way." Suddenly, the critical lady snapped her gaze to the rival team and unleashed a thunderous Shiden spell. Then she charged in, smashing through the opponents so hard the match blurred into a full-on clash. That scary aggressive girl turned out to be Aimsty, the same one who'd already embarrassed Dea in public, calling her good for nothing and useless on the team. But today, Aimsty finally decided to end the showdown for good. The guy snapped his eyes around, sized everything up fast, and then hit the girls with a straight, serious question. What's your team's game plan for how you're handling this conflict next? Aimsty boldly confirmed the rules let them take on the renegades for the dolls, and when the young man snapped back that their team had no dolls, the other team's leader shot him a smug grin like that was game over. Behind the boys, a monster barreled closer, snapping to attack at any heartbeat, so the young warriors clenched up, braced hard, and prepared for the clash that was coming whether they were ready or not. Dea snapped up her ironclad shield in a blink, blocking the hit clean, and the young man immediately clocked the attacker as a kobold, the exam's big bad for this stage. The girl clutched her defense like it was her last breath, smacking back the monster's endless rage as each furious blow rattled her shield, so hard it might finally shatter. The young man had been clocking every move, and then, boom, he spotted the key detail. The kobold was clutching one of the dolls they needed, and he snapped his head to his companion and warned him. With a smug smile, Amnesty claimed the competitors were just trying to steal the doll they were hunting, then sneered that their rivals were nothing but petty thieves, coveting someone else's hard-earned win. Still, she swallowed the doubt and accepted fate's verdict, then snapped into action, ordering Spinal and Laz to hit the enemy immediately, certain this fight would end in victory. He snapped to it right away. The whole thing was a trap, carefully set up by their rivals to bait them into an unnecessary brawl and wipe them out of the prize places. Spinal and Blazu swaggered up and demanded two brand-new magical techniques, the Firesicle and the Icicle, so hard that it snapped the other team into a full-blown fight, turning both sides into enemies overnight. Daya slammed her shield with a brutal, heavy strike, thud, dull metal ringing through the air and slamming into her ears, and she stiffened hard, forcing every ounce of strength to hold that hit. The rivals stared at each other, baffled, because that shield had taken the hit and stayed perfectly intact. No cracks, no damage, and while all of them were still stuck on that, her teammate hurried over and asked her if she was all right, getting a clear yes in reply. The kobold launched into an all-out assault, but the young man snatched his sword and swore he wasn't letting anyone lay another hand on his companion. He'd step into the fight himself and guard them to the end. Amnesty cast the Shiden spell, blasting a devastating strike straight at her enemies. She wanted to end the fight fast and prove, once and for all, she was untouchably superior. Daya jumped to defend herself again, grinning as the attacker shrugged that this was all too predictable, then warned that hiding behind defense won't win if the enemy's only here to dodge the fight, not to take action. Worried, a friend demanded to know how his girlfriend was holding up after yet another attack, and she shot back with total confidence, swearing her artifact was still working perfectly, ready to shield them again. Rage flared in the rival because their team couldn't beat the monster alone, yet they still acted like everything was fine, until their bond proved that when they finally teamed up for real, the synergy was unstoppable. Amnesty shot out a sarcastic remark that expecting her to be an adventurer with nothing but a plain shield and a rusty sword was straight up ridiculous. Then she told her rivals to knock it off, stop trying to change her mind, and definitely not make her laugh. Suddenly, the kobold snapped around and charged straight at the girl, going on full offense, and her comrades scrambled to warn her, begging her to stay sharp while telling the monster, "Give the doll back and back off, or you'll regret it." Ratsu's sword snapped back to its original shape, glowing into a mystical blade, and at the same time, the rival leader, sensing danger, shouted for Spinel and Lazu to spin around and check what was lurking behind them. The young man cut down the kobold with lightning speed, and both girls watching him went wide-eyed with pure awe. Amnesty blurted out in full panic that her comrades' artifacts were only level C, and she couldn't wrap her head around how that kid had just taken out two brutal opponents at once, and still walked away unscathed. Her mind raced, trying to figure out who this reckless newcomer was that flipped the whole battle on its head. Ratsu shot a cold reminder into the air that he was gunning for the adventurer title, same as Amnesty and Daya, and then he warned them. If their opponents had his friend's shield, they could stop his attack and keep themselves from getting wiped out. Keeping the whole teamwork idea alive, the young man pushed forward. If he and his comrade joined forces, they could shut down any enemy assault, but the squad leader snapped back, demanding he stay silent. "Stop being so selfish. Don't keep arguing like there's no reliable information." The guy didn't just help the injured girls. He offered to fix the broken church artifacts and promised to take them straight to the city, and that kind heart blindsided even the former rivals, who were used to brutal competition and backroom tricks, leaving them both shocked and suspicious. Even with the exam sitting there like a spotless rulebook, the young man kept insisting, swearing he couldn't shake the guilt for messing up the artifacts. Then Amnesty shot down his offer without a second thought. The three girls plunged deeper into the forest, vanishing farther and farther from the heroes, until Daya suddenly yells at Amnesty, and Amnesty doesn't even glance back as she keeps walking. Ratsu steps back from the girl and strides straight for the doll, then crouches and snatches it up, while the man whips his head around to stare at his friend Daya. He stands there in silence, staring at the doll like it's calling him, then he snaps with an idea, turns to the girl and tells her they finally have one doll, so now she can become an adventurer, only for her to stay stone still with her back turned, saying nothing. Suddenly, Ratsu clocks it. Daya is breaking down, and tears pour down her cheeks like she can't stop. A sad girl spills to a man that it's flat-out impossible for things to ever go back to how they were. He just stares at her in silence, then finally asks, "So what happened to you?" Daya watches the three girls vanish down the road, then turns to the boy and blurts that they were childhood friends back in their village. Amnesty taught her everything. The girl blurts out that Amesty was there for her in everything, studies, training, all of it, and then adds, straight-faced, that he's basically her sister. Behind Amesty, the girls are whispering furiously, how dare this Pankatsu touch their precious artifacts. They're talking like they just want to be the top in this exam, but the girl, she doesn't even listen. Amesty seethes with rage. She thinks it's finally her turn, because she figured out how to run like lightning, refuses to lose in battle anymore, and even learned how to study smarter. She knows she pushed herself harder than anyone, because she kept leveling up and tried to befriend everyone she met. Amesty finally understands this. If she turns into a better person, she'll never have to face life alone again. She thrusts the bracelet into view and declares it's a B-rank Shiden. Then her mest's friends go wild, praising her like she's the absolute best and bragging that she's got the finest artifact, while little Dea beams, staring at her in pure admiration. The girl bends down to pet her little friend, thanks her right back, and whispers that she's hoping for the best, then admits she has to hurry. Amesty's friends pile in with congratulations, and the girl thanks them all, only to spot something waiting behind her. She hears the girl snap a question at him. What did he just say? And he shrugs, admitting he can't even really hear it, except he's sure it was an A-ranked shield of immortality, and Amesty's jaw drops at what she just overheard. Just like that, she spots her friend up on stage with the rare artifact, and Dea scrambles to explain herself, only to realize she doesn't need excuses anymore, because all she can do is beg Amesty for forgiveness. The girl stares at her friend, totally lost as she mutters, sorry, while Amesty can't figure out why Dea has an A-rank artifact and she's stuck with a B, so she starts wondering if her life went wrong somewhere, and if all her hard work was for nothing. Dea stares at her with real, aching regret, yet that girl still can't get it. Why should she feel sorry for the man who stole everything from her? Amesty snapped out of her memories and heard her friends pouring out apologies, so she demanded, what happened? And they confessed the artifacts were destroyed, leaving them with no idea what to do next. Amesty slaps a hand on her chest, flashes full confidence, and promises she'll fix everything fast and crush this exam. Then she declares they're about to become the greatest adventurers, turns to her friends, and thanks them for standing by her every step of the way. In the middle of the forest, the girls huddle up and demand answers. Who is this swordsman supposed to be? And then, out of nowhere, they watch his rusty artifact suddenly shift and change. One of the girls bursts into laughter and says her friend was shaking with fear in that moment, and her friend shoots back that Spinal was seconds away from crying. Then Amesty beams at the others and tells them, all right, it's time for us to go. Suddenly, the girl spots a creepy aura lurking behind her friends. Panic hits her fast, and she snaps, dodge now, fearing something's about to strike. The girls scramble out of the way when giant claws suddenly slash down, smashing into them. The girls slam onto the ground, clutching their wounded hands, still stunned. Then Amesty bursts into view, steps in front of them, hides them behind her back, and guards them like her life depends on it. Suddenly, a catwoman with pointed ears and a swishing tail pops into view, laughing through nerves as she licks the blades with her cat tongue, muttering that it's seriously disappointing. She thought they'd spot her way sooner, but their intuition totally crumbled on her. Amesty's heart slams as she spots a demon looming right in front of her, and then Dea turns to her, begging to be friends again, just like before, swearing she wants to team up as adventurers. The guy whips around to her friend and tells him she doesn't need to drag herself back to the old days, so Dea, totally lost, asks again, and the man finally declares, then come on, we'll be adventurers together. The guy tells her, from now on, you can be my friend, your sister, and the moment it hits, the girl clamps her hands to her chest and blurts it out again, can they really stay just friends? Ratsu lifts her fist with joy, grinning like, now I'm not the sister who follows you, I'm your friend, standing right beside you. The girl laughs, smiles straight from the heart, and thanks him. The girl blurts out that she wants to be her friend, and while the guys are busy talking, the demon hits Amesty with a brutal, no-mercy wound. The girl crumples to the ground, gasping hard as her friends panic, and then a demon, perched in a tree and slipping in and out of invisibility, smirks, saying this accident is actually a shocking gift, because the adventurers who hunted her had finally stormed into the forest where she'd been resting. The demon grins and calls this place a tasty hunting ground stuffed with delicious adventurers, while the girl glares ahead and thinks, Spinel and Lizu won't be able to hold him off. He's got invisibility on top of everything. She realizes her timing might be the problem. Showing up right at the attack could lock her in place while the skill is running, so the girl hatches a plan. She burst out of nowhere and charged straight for the demon, striking without hesitation, and the Catwoman was stunned because there was no way she expected to see that coming. Amesty snaps to her friends and says, I'll hold them off, now you've got to run. Panic hits the girls instantly because they're terrified and don't get it at all. There's no way they'd ever agree to something like that. The girl shrieks orders at them and admits she can't fight to keep them safe, so if they don't run right now, every single one of them is going to get killed. Right beside the girl, a demon suddenly lunges, driving a blade straight into her shoulder, and Amesti lets out a terrified scream, half in pain, half in shock. The girl reels from the demon's brutal pain, and in that torment, she remembers Dea. Ratsu and Dea stride through the forest, scanning everything. Then Ratsu snaps his head to her, suspicious and worried, and asks if she's really okay. Dea stays silent, her mind racing as she glances off to the side. The girl, visibly terrified, blurts out that something feels terribly wrong, and she decides she has to turn back right now. Amesti, battered and barely holding on, strains to rise again, while her friends crowd around, panic in their voices as they call out, begging her to tell them she's okay. The demon just watches it all like it's entertainment, grinning the whole time. Meanwhile, Amesti whips around to her friends and insists, "I'm fine, it's just a scratch." Then she begs them to run, but the girls don't budge. They refuse to leave her behind. With her back turned, the girl barks a loud command, "Run," and then her friends just stare at her, hearts sinking with regret and pure despair. Too scared to keep arguing, the girls trust their friend and sprint through the forest. Then the demon grins, lifts her blades, and declares it's all pointless because she's going to catch them and tear them apart. With a smug rise, the Mesti throws her arms wide and snarls that it's not that simple. She spotted the demon's weakness. The next second, the Catwoman vanishes from the girl's sight, and pure shock slams into her when she realizes just how fast she is. The cat demon's long tail coils around the girl's neck. Amesti panics, clamps onto the tail, and yanks to break free, but the demon simply lifts his hands and bursts into laughter, leaving her staring in shock at how he's moving so fast. The demon tightens its grip around Meshja's neck, smirking and asking if she really means that, when she attacks, she has to pop out of invisibility. Then Meshja's eyes widen, panic hits, and she clamps down on the demon's tail harder, desperate not to choke. The demon closes in, blades pressed to the girl's throat, and she snaps into clarity, "Yeah, she's the kind you want, but I can match her pace." Then she grins and shouts that she and the twins won't get out because she'll rip them apart. Amesti clamps her fist tight, knowing she has to stall for every second she can. Then she fires a question at the demon. "Why attack people?" The demon, gripping her by the chin, freezes, shocked. The demon boasts that killing humans makes them blessed, and humans swear the same, until Catwoman sinks the girl's skin and drops a terrifying truth. There's a whole other reason behind it. The demon scratches at the girl's skin and purrs that she loves to play with people, then dares the girl to cry, beg, and beg again like her life depends on it. The girl squints at her and the demon sneers that she's ignoring her because it's all just too dull. Then she declares the game's over since the girl won't talk, and Amesti snaps back, ending it, leaving the demon stunned at what she just heard. The girl clenches her fist and pours every last drop of magic into it, then swings straight at the demon, her spell stacked to the max until a massive lightning bolt rips through and pierces it. Amesti snaps his hand up, and the demon rockets away at full speed, vanishing as far as it can. The girl holds her hand out in front of her and lets out this heavy, defeated sigh, then stares forward, realizing she pulled it off and bought the girl exactly the time she needed. Then boom, she hears the demon snap back, claiming her real speed is lightning, and the girl's stunned out of her mind, because she definitely never expected to hear the demon's voice again. When the smoke finally thins, a demon steps out, shining like electricity, and declares that the same trick won't work on her because her magic is dark lightning. The girl's eyes go wide, fear spikes in her chest, but what if, just what if, this really is a demon? Catwoman snaps to her feet and lunges for the girl. Amesti throws up her hand to block her, but the demon drives his blade straight through, and the girl recoils in pure terror at what she's just witnessed. The demon slams her with brutal damage, and she yelps in terror and agony. Then the demon swings his blades, grinning as he taunts, "Nice scream, I wanna hear more." Catwoman vows she'll keep raining damage on the enemy, while the girl, drained to the bone, clings on with her last shred of strength and prays her friends make it out alive. The demon lunges to strike again, and the girl steels herself, thinks everything's under control because she still has a way through, trusting that all her hard work has paid off before and that she can recharge the artifact again. But then it hits her, she can't handle this, fear crushes her, and tears spill down her cheeks, and as she sinks to the ground, she quietly begs for help. Suddenly, Dea bursts into a sprint, racing at full speed to reach her old friend and help her fast. But the demon won't hesitate. She slams her blade down, aiming for a deadly, treacherous strike against the girl. Right after that, Dea's shield snaps into place in front of her, wham, sending Catwoman blasting away in pure shock. Dea looks up with tired, tearful eyes, and when she finally speaks, she tells her everything's fine now. Amesti's eyes go wide when she spots her old friend. She definitely didn't expect her here, so Dea, gripping her shield tight, shoots back that she'll protect her no matter what. The demon spots the girl and erupts into loud laughter, convinced she's fresh prey, until a shout cracks through the air. Black flame, fear hits him like a punch. Out of nowhere, a massive punch comes barreling toward her. Amesti's friends rush in fast, panicking over her, and over Ratsu too. The girl burst into tears, apologizing to her with everything she had. Then Amesti snapped, asking why she's crying and what they're doing here. Her friend told her not to worry, soothing her as she rushed to give first aid. Dea keeps the shield up, whirls around to the girls, and blurts out she has a terrible feeling. Then she spots her friends already rushing in with first aid for Amesti. She remembers the girls sprinting straight to her and the swordsman, pleading, begging hands out like, please help. Then Amesti, staring at her bandaged hand, finally cracks and admits it. Somehow she made it through. The girl whips around to her old friend, demanding, why would you save me after I've been the villain in your eyes my whole life? But before she can finish, Dea cuts in with a gentle smile and says, because we're friends. Amesti freezes at what she's just heard, bitter tears spilling down her cheeks. Then out of the rubble a demon lunges forward, declaring that those are, in fact, her friends. Demona's anger surges, and with a jittery smile she blurts out that she doesn't want tears of peace, she wants tears of pain. Suddenly a cat woman with wild eyes charged in, threw herself right up front, and demanded to know what would happen if she ripped her friend apart, right there in front of her. But right when she's about to get hit, Ratsu bursts into the scene, slams his blade between them to block the strike, and whips off his own attack, leaving the demon with zero time to react. The demon grins, slams her blades across his sword, and snaps that he's in the way, then begs him to step aside and let her handle it. Catwoman rockets forward, blades snapping through the air as she laughs, I'll deliver the magic of Dark Storm. But he barrels in and blocks her strike, and it shoves the demon back just a step enough for the man to realize how insanely fast it moves. Then he declares he'll unleash black flame magic, and his sword erupts in a crackling black aura shaped like fire. He hammers the demon with a brutal, full-force swing, but she slips aside at the last second, so hard Catwoman just stares, shocked by how vicious the power is, and blurts out what kind of kid he is. Before anyone can blink, he snaps another strike and slices the demon's tail clean off. The demon spots her tail, gone, and erupts into furious curses, rage burning hot as steam. The boy realizes he's basically got zero fighting experience, but with this magic sword, he thinks he can still win. Then, out of nowhere, pain bites, something sharp hits him, and he drops the blade. The man snaps with a sudden headache, and the demon, totally not ready for that twist, jumps back and blurts, what's happening? As she realizes the artifact's look has changed. The demon spots a rusty old sword on the ground, and immediately wonders if that cursed relic has a time limit. Then one of the creeps lets out a laugh and calls her a funny one, because she'll still crush him soon enough. She swings in, but the girl's shield snaps up and blocks the hit. Dea lunged in front of the boy just in time, shielding him while he recovered, and the demon practically froze, because it was terrified to face her again. The demon snaps into a rage and vows he'll crush the artifact. Then Amesti whips around, stares at Dea and says, yeah, not happening. It's an eternal shield with durability that never runs out. Rage flares in the demon's eyes, then surprise hits hard as she demands whether it's really infinite. Stunned, she can barely understand how that's even possible, and how this girl managed to pull it off. The demon cranks up acceleration magic again, sneering that the boy's artifact and the girl's shield are disgusting and useless against her. A heartbeat later, she vanishes, and the boy blurts out where she went, while the girl shuts her eyes and listens, dead still. A heartbeat later, the demon lunges at the girl, but she snaps her shield up just in time. The demon's fury erupts as it can't believe she actually stopped it. The girl fires back, saying it could have been an accident, then demands what the demon plans to do next. Right then Catwoman whips out her acceleration magic again, blasts in with a brutal strike, and still nothing works. The demon's rage flares even hotter, snarling, who are you anyway? Before Dea glares him down, because they're not adventurers yet. He finally realizes it. Every time she protected him all these days, it wasn't luck. He finally understood it wasn't luck. She wasn't just seeing the monster first or tracking the enemy's every move, she was foreseeing the future. The Catwoman enemy vanishes again right before their eyes, so the boy snatches up his sword, fresh and ready, and fires off, asking the girl where she went this time, while she spins around and listens like every word could be the key. She shuts her eyes, waiting for what's coming, then snaps them open and points like she can see the demon's exact spot. In a blink, a Catwoman lunges at the guy, but he's one step ahead, ready to block and defend. With a jolt of excitement and a pinch of fear, he blurts out that the demon really is unbelievably fast, and before he can process it, he stumbles back, stunned, and swears with total sincerity that under no circumstances will he ever be able to touch her. The demon doubled over, cackling like it was tearing her apart, then her laughter snaps into fury. She curses through every word and taunts them with deafening confidence. She'll wipe out every single opponent, no exceptions. He can feel it, maybe he can beat her in this fight, so he swallows the fear, exhales, tells her I'm fine, then charges forward like nothing can stop him, because he's decided to unleash the magic, Shadden to flip the whole outcome. Suddenly, black lightning rips through the demon again, jolting the air, yet she only lets out a soft sigh, like it barely even matters. Catwoman erupts in furious screams, raging over how she warned that none of this would work and that everything was already predetermined. Then, right in the middle of it all, Amista blasts out, "It needs to be carried now." Just a split second later, like the universe snapped its fingers, Ratsu was already behind the demon, smashing it with a brutal hit, and the demon's eyes went wide because it never saw that sudden twist coming. Sparks of confidence exploding in his chest, the man slams the demon with a brutal vertical strike, and the Catwoman, to her horror, never even gets a blink to dodge or defend herself. The boy swings down and slices the demon clean in half. Instantly it crumples to nothing, then flutters away and vanishes into thin air. The girls nearby gawk in amazement, and Dea, swamped with pure joy, breaks into a huge grin before roaring, "We did it. We beat that out-of-control threat." With a sincere, no-nonsense smile, the man tells her it's all because of her, and Amistia, because their spiritual strength and courage carried them through. Then he steps right up with real respect, and she can't help but blink in surprise, staring at him with fresh, curious interest. The man grins and thanks her for her reaction, which catches her off guard and makes her cheeks burn, so she tries to speak, but the words suddenly vanish in her throat. Suddenly, the guys realize the exam is already sprinting toward the finish line. Hearing that, Ratsu and Dea jolt with fear, because they've only got one doll left. Then the guy snatches it out, looks completely lost, and doesn't know what to do next. Panic claws at his chest as he realizes the brutal truth. Either he or Dea will be the one who passes, and that person will never become an adventurer again. The thought crushes him, leaving nothing but a thin, trembling shard of fear in his soul. At night, shadowy killers creep through the forest, shouting back and forth, demanding to know if anyone found the girl, because they have to grab her before she reaches the city, and she's peering out from the bushes in pure terror as she watches them close in. She bandages her broken arm with restoration magic, and just as the cure is about to take, it suddenly cuts out after a few heartbeats. Then she rushes to the cliff's edge and stares into the night-dark forest below. She seethes the moment she stares at the trees, convinced the adventurers are the ones behind everything. In the city, a man strides up to the rats and tells them, "When the exams end, I want you to hear what really happened in the demon attack." The boy nods along, then immediately turns his gaze away, fixated on the lone doll. The man stares at the doll, face set in stone as he weighs his next move. Then Dea slips up behind him, calm as ever, and calls out to the guy. He whips around, shoves the doll into her hands, grips it tight without letting go, and tells her she's meant to become an adventurer. Dea stares at the doll in pure shock. Panic sparks in her eyes as she grabs the guy's arm and talks him out of it, telling him, "You beat that demon and you even brought back the doll." Then she leans in and insists, "So stop hiding, you're built to be an adventurer." He reassures the girl, telling her that when they first met, his whole adventure could have ended on that spot, right then. Dea stares at him, stunned. He tightly clasps her hands with the doll and insists she shielded a stranger, because in a village, kindness doesn't just matter, it protects everyone. He clamps her palms in his, stares at the doll, and sincerely praises her like it's a priceless victory. Still clutching the doll in her grip, Amesty suddenly materializes right in front of them, watching their hands as she presses. "So, how long is he actually going to keep holding your hand?" The man snaps around and yanks his hand away from the girl, clearly shocked she's right there, while Dea's cheeks burn with embarrassment. With his bandaged hand and that sly grin, Amesty leans in and asks if they're actually a couple. The boy blushes hard at the girl's words and scrambles to deny it, but Dea, panicking for her, insists she's hurt and needs to rest, and even the messy girl claims she understands and will rest soon, until she suddenly yanks out a doll and throws it up. The doll drops straight into the guy's hands. He catches it cleanly, and he can't stop himself from wondering why the girl just pulled that stunt. Amesty snaps that the doll is pointless to all three of them, then she decides to hand it over to him, leaving the guy totally stunned by her bold move. Amesty marches deeper into the city, cutting past Dea like she's not even there, and Dea spins around ready to ask her something, until Amesty, still not turning, snaps at her to remember. She whips around with a bright, warm smile and tells him she'll catch up with her soon. The girl lets out a shaky breath of relief. Tears spill over as she grins brightly and tells him she can't wait. The guys watch the three friends walk off, and he turns to the girl and asks if she's really okay. Then she blasts back, loud and clear, that she's totally fine. Suddenly, a voice cuts in and tells the guys they're the only two who still haven't finished the procedure. Then the heroes freeze, shocked that the voice even exists at all. The boys snap around and there's Janet. She lays it on them. Letting the demon slip in was their fault. Then she softens and admits she's insanely grateful they showed up and stopped it. The girl studies them closely, then snaps. From this moment on, our lives are going to get way more dangerous. A woman with laser-focused intent tells them that from this day on, they're adventurers, and the girl and the guy just freeze, cheeks burning, because hearing that made them ridiculously happy. The guys rolled into the bar to celebrate their promotion, and the second their drinks hit the table, they clinked glasses with cocktails in pure, bubbling joy. The girl whirls toward him, shouting that everything here costs a fortune, and he lifts his fist with a grin. Today's a holiday, so they're totally allowed to rest. He even says he's still got plenty of the money his mom gave him, but the second she hears it, her face flushes and worry creeps in as she insists she'll pay the bill. Ratsu suddenly snaps back to the moment and asks the girl, when he was heading home from the guild, did he accidentally catch Amesha talking about his apology for the demon attack? He tells her they can take the exam in just a week, and the girl's heart flips, worried for him, thrilled for her friend. The man tells her not to stress, and she nods back, saying she understands everything. She wipes the tears off her face, flashes a warm smile, and tells him, we can't be adventurers together, not yet, but someday we'll chase adventures side by side. He's left staring, stunned by what she just said. The man in support fires back that she's right, and the girl freezes, totally not ready for that answer, so she blurts out the meaning again, like she can't believe it. He blurts out his secret. He's got someone he promised he'd become an adventurer, too. The guy says that back when he was weak, this man always stepped in to protect him without even pausing to think. Then, after a brief silence, the girl, still eating dinner, tells him she understands it all. Daya's cheeks burn and he blurts out, wait, do you really want me to tag along with you? With the mug in his hand, he shoots down the challenge and snaps that he's still way out of reach, because he has to level up first. Then he stares into his drink's reflection and swears that someday he'll come back even stronger than ever. She got it instantly, stared at the guy sipping from his mug, and demanded, so this is really just a promotion test. Then she nodded and confessed her real dream, to rise above the white level. The guy nods like he finally gets it, then pushes the question again, so what's the white level? And he even admits he knows the girl is fighting tooth and nail to reach the top. Daya lowers her gaze and asks if he even knows about the deadly stretch of Shirogane Cave, because you can't step in unless you're a white-level adventurer. The man shoots back, why do you want to risk your life there? She answers without blinking, she has asterisk to go, and that's exactly why she became an adventurer. With a stone-cold, serious face, the girl tells you her parents were adventurers who vanished after heading into Shirogane Cave, and then she admits, straight to the point, that she won't rest until she figures out what happened to them. The guy's jaw drops at what he hears, so he blurts out, are you really her father and mother? And the girl shoots up, ready to finally tell him the truth. She grabs his hands and leans in with a sincere smile, asking if he'll join their group, because she genuinely believes they're the perfect match. The man lets out a quiet laugh at the question he just heard, and when the girl clocks his reaction, worry hits her fast. She blurts out, why are you laughing? Once the laughter died down, the guy shrugs and says, I've heard it before, and the girl's face instantly burns even hotter. The man pushes back from the table, practically buzzing with joy, and rushes over to thank the girl, then blurts out the real reason he's desperate to become an adventurer. The man blurts out that he wants to be a hero and shield people, then asks her if it's okay for him to chase that dream, and the girl lights up with a happy smile, agreeing, like everything is exactly as it should be. The boys band together, punching the air and swearing they'll do their absolute best, then set their sights on becoming legends as adventurers. The very next day, Ratsu and Daya show up in Janet, right on time. She tells them they finally made it, and the man steps forward, smiling as he asks what he can do for her. But before he can get the words out, Janet snaps that she forgot something crucial, and the demon is the reason. She slams 2 books on the table and declares, this is it. The boys grab them, stare down at the covers in their hands, and one of them blurts, so what are these and what are they even for? Janet tells them these books are proof they finished the adventurer's notebook request, and now, with her help, they'll be able to snatch rewards and seals themselves, while the boys stare at their own books in stunned silence. He blurts out in shock, what are seals? And the girl shoots back, if you collect enough of them, you can clear the promotion test. The girl and the man gawk in disbelief. Turns out you really can pass the promotion test with the help of seals and boost your rank. The girl asks if they truly want to take the promotion test, and then she grins, saying this city is packed with budding adventurers, the requests are basically easy, and the reward seals are small. Janet thrusts a form into their hands and promises she'll nail them the perfect local queries, right away, while the boys clutch their books and stare down the form, reading every word. He grips the form and demands, "So this is the real flyer for Wantadog," then presses, "And is this really the best request you've got?" He reads the form and says the reward looks tiny, but his girlfriend flashes a reassuring smile and tells him, "Don't worry, this is only the start." Janet fires back, "If you want a high-paying query, why don't you switch up where you're operating?" And the girl blurts, "What do you mean, change the base?" She tells him some requests are downright strange, so adventurers start at the copper class and work their way up to the black class to take them on. Then the girl freezes, breath hitching, like she just remembered something huge. Dea snaps, "What happened?" And the girl answers, "The adventure list that calls Bluestria home vanished not long ago." Dea demands to know what he means by disappeared, and right away she starts fearing the worst, like maybe demons snatched that man away. He tells them to think through everything first, but right now, they're taking a search request for a dog. The man apologizes to the girl, claiming he made the call all by himself, and she brushes it off, then presses him hard, demanding to know what really happened. He finally admits he got hooked on her request only because it showed up just recently. The boy blurts that the dog they're hunting vanished this morning near Nanashiki Forest, and the girl gasps that maybe this is exactly where they took the exam. The man nods along with her, warning that it'll turn bad fast if that impatient owner goes hunting for him. She's stunned, because she thought she'd figured everything out. He admits that maybe Janet set this up on purpose, like she knew they'd miss something if they didn't think it through. Then right as he's about to finish, the girl cuts him off and spots something up ahead. Dea strides up to the tree, creeps closer to the bushes, and drops down to stare at whatever snagged her attention, while the guy's stunned by her reaction and blurts out, "What just happened here?" The man closes in on the girl, who's been staring through the bushes, and then boom, he spots them, a whole swarm of goblins wearing hats marching ahead with clubs. The man realizes they're kobolds, and the guy blurts that they already spotted them and laid an ambush. Then he admits they're ruthless and clever, only for the girl to snap around and shout at him to look around. Suddenly, a whole swarm of goblins came charging in, snatching the boys and the girl by the nerves as they realized, in horror, they'd been trapped on all sides. Those horrible kobolds cackle under their breath, smiling like they've already cooked up their next evil move. He knows each creature alone isn't much, but getting swarmed like that could spell disaster, and he also sees Dea can't possibly shield them, until the man suddenly decides everything's fine, pulls out blades from his back pocket, and thinks he's got a shot. Dea spots the weapon and instantly recognizes it as the demon cat's. Then the guy, barely thinking, smashes his sword together with the demon's blades and fuses them into a brand new synthesis of artifacts. The kobolds keep their eyes locked on him, stunned by what he does. Then he declares he's granting them the magic black flame, and right after, his sword surges, becoming even more powerful. He squints as he unleashes double magic asterisk, drops into a fighting stance, then whips up his brand new sword and hurls black lightning asterisk through it. The girl's eyes go wide as the guy makes his move. She's still trying to figure out what's happening when the man charges straight for the tapestry, black sword swinging like a storm. The kobolds panic and scatter like sparks because they know one touch from him means death. He whips his weapon forward, ready to smash them, but the goblins flinch hard, fear blazing in their eyes, then scramble away before he can land a hit. Dea can't stop staring at Ratsu, and the second she notices his sword crackling with black lightning, he snaps forward and drives a searing bolt straight through him. Dea yelps in fear, grabs his attention, and demands to know if he's really okay, because is that artifact of his with that demon cat what's doing this? Ratsu shoots back that it's not the artifact talking, it's his sword skill. Combo forged from artifacts, and you can synthesize way more than weapons, you can even synthesize skills. He breaks it down like, yep, two totally different abilities can live inside one artifact, and the other guy just blurts, so, can I actually trigger both at the same time? The girl says she's got it all, but admits it'll take a truly special artifact to do it, while the guy realizes double magic can be activated, even though his body won't survive the strain. Suddenly, a little girl bursts out of the bushes clutching a dog, says it's all amazing, then asks what's going on, right as the dog starts barking and the heroes finally spot it. Terrified she'll get caught, the girl bolts as the boy and girl rush toward the source of the sound, only to spot it coming from right inside that bush. Out of nowhere, a little farther up the path, they spot a girl slumped on the ground with a tiny dog beside her. Dea rushes in to ask if she's okay, but the man snaps, telling her not to move too fast. The man yanks the girl behind his back, and Dea's stunned. She can't even figure out what he's doing, so the guy explains, I just had a bad feeling something was wrong with her. Suddenly, the man blurts that the girl is a demon, then fear hits her like a punch, because she realizes the truth is out. Dea keeps pressing the point, baffled. Seriously, this girl doesn't look like a demon at all, she blurts. The guy clicks his tongue and insists, we should report this to the Adventurers Guild quickly. The man knows demons are people's enemies, but when he stares at that terrified girl, he realizes she could pass for human, so fear crawls up his spine, because he has no idea if he'll be able to kill her. Ratsu remembers how he devoured stories of heroes since he was a kid, and one truth never wavered: those demons were the people's sworn enemies. The man realizes those demons are a real threat, enemies to people, but now, for the first time, doubt crawls into his mind about them. A boy and a girl stop dead in front of the dog girl, and the boy's stomach drops as he wonders, does this demon hunt him, or is she just another ally in disguise? He slowly draws his sword, and the girl freezes, horror and terror crashing over her as she realizes he's an adventurer. Then he glances at her, confused because in a demon's eyes, adventurers are the real enemies. He stares at the girl trembling in fear, swears this is why demons have been coming for him, and then admits, right there, that this demon doesn't feel like a threat at all. Just when it gets weird, a tiny dog bursts into barking, standing guard and defending his girlfriend. A tiny dog went berserk, barking at the boy with every ounce of courage to shield the girl, something even she never expected from her own friend, while Ratsu and Dea stared in shock at the wild move. He remembers every demon that tried to kill him, and the moment he starts thinking, he realizes he's got no clue what he's supposed to do next. The man falls into deep thought. What would he do if he were the hero? And then he can't help wondering what Ruby would do in that exact moment. Ratsu shoves away all the junk in his head, because now he's an adventurer, and he knows he has to choose his own path. Then he suddenly hears the little demon calling out to his brother. He spots the demon gripping her tiny hands, while the doctor frantically calls his brother for help to save her. The man freezes in disbelief at what he just saw, then, after a quick rethink, he slowly drops his sword. Suddenly, he thrusts his hand toward the tearful girl, offering peace before the tension can snap. The guy dips down a little, flashes her a warm smile, and apologizes for scaring her, then asks if she's okay. Dea stares at him in total shock, like she never saw her friend pulling something like that. The girl's eyes widen, surprise hits, fear follows, but then she shoots to her feet and insists she's totally fine. Dea suddenly realizes what it is, breaks into a smile and says, "Wait, it was that exact dog all along." And the demon finally snaps back. He looked like a lost kid, so that's why they've been stuck together this whole time. The heroes blur out their surprise and ask the girl why she's stuck out here in the forest, and the guy presses harder, "Are you really lost?" But the demon just turns his head away, clutching the dog, and flat out snaps that she isn't lost at all. The man says he gets it, then warns that being alone out here is dangerous anyway. Dea picks up on the tension and declares that they'll take her home. Right in front of them, the demon scoops up the little dog in a tight hug and blurts out that she's got nowhere to go, no home, no place to be, leaving the heroes stunned by every word. She stares at the same lost dog with tearful eyes and tells him, "That's why I'm not lost," and the man can't believe what he's hearing. Suddenly, the girl drops the little dog and says it's time for her to leave. Then the dog spins around, rears up on its hind legs, and barks like it's terrified, begging her not to go. The demon slides down beside it, tells her not to worry, and insists it's better for the dog to ride along with these people. Out of nowhere, the dog pounces on the girl and sends her crashing to the ground. Then the heroes just stare in shock. The tiny pup starts licking the demon like it's pure love, and while the girl sprawls there laughing and begging it to stop, she admits she's just too ticklish. Dea and Ratsu burst into laughter too, because the whole scene is just too cute. She's calmly petting the dog, and then the guy drops the question, "Do you want us to talk to the Adventurers Guild about your help?" The girl goes wide-eyed, totally shocked by what he just said. Suddenly, fear hits her hard the moment she hears about the Adventurers Guild, and the guy panics, telling her, "Relax, I'm not going to say you're a demon." Dea tells the girl she has to find a place to stay, and the man snaps back that nothing can be done out in the open. It all has to stay hidden. Suddenly, the girl shrinks back, lets out a sad little "I'm fine," and pleads, "Please, I just want to be alone." He's stunned by what he hears, staring at the poor demon girl. Then, out of nowhere, he feels something hit him. Just a heartbeat later, a huge dagger comes flying straight at them, and the guy snaps into action, yanking the girl into his arms to take the hit, only for that brutal magic to slam into both of them anyway. The brutal hit hurls the guy and the demon aside, and Dea's face twists with pure, non-stop fear. That shabby guy catches her eye and she asks, "Are you okay?" Then he grins and tells her, "I'm fine." The demon girl freezes, terror flashing in her eyes, and blurts, "Why would you help me?" Because she's a demon, yet the man breathing hard insists, "Sure, you're a demon, but you're not my enemy." Suddenly, she remembers that man who bragged about loving human connections, and before she can even think, she shoots her hand out toward the guy, ready to make a move. She plants her palm on his back and floods him with restoration magic, sealing up every wound. Moments later, the man shoots to his feet and his wounds are gone. The girl blurts, "Is this healing magic?" He's stunned, staring at himself like he's just cheated death, and then his mind races. Why didn't future sight kick in? Why did that attack feel like it wasn't meant for them at all? Out of nowhere, a stranger they've never seen steps right in front of them and blurts that he's heard plenty, then snaps his command, "Move out of the way," and Ratsu can't believe his eyes. Helio stands there, ripping into them with a sharp tongue. Then the boy's eyes go wide, because he remembers this guy from their childhood, and before he can even react, more boys burst out of the bushes and bark orders for the man to not go alone. Suddenly, they spot those guys and demand to know who they are. Then the man shoots Helio a question, "Did you really attack the other adventurers?" And the guy snaps back, "They're not adventurers." Suddenly, Ratsu storms up to Helio and announces that he's become an adventurer too, leaving the boy stunned. Then he bursts into loud laughter, teasing, "So you guys really don't have enough manpower to take someone like me." Suddenly, the man snaps out of his mood and barks at the boy, demanding to know why he's protecting the demon. With his back shielding her, the guy leans in and insists, "This kid isn't hostile." Helio starts snapping curses, asking the guy if he ever even read those hero books, because they've been telling everyone that demons and people are enemies. Suddenly, the man lurking behind Helio blurts out, "You okay?" He says they got a request and have been tracking this demon as the prime suspect in an adventurer's disappearance. Then the guy sticks out his hand and asks if he can hand it over to them. Dea is stunned by what she just heard. Then the guy straight up says Janet talked about it, and suddenly that little demon is trembling with terror, scrambling to get the words out. The girl clutches the guy's shirt, terror blazing in her eyes as she blurts, "I don't know what's happening, it's not me." Then the demon demands the guy trust her. The man snatches his weapon and snarls that if he won't surrender the demon, then he'll deal with it right here, himself. Ratsu's stomach drops as he hears it, and then he realizes the truth. He's about to go toe-to-toe with that guy. Helio's partners demand he cool off and explain what he's planning. Then Helio snaps, swears, and tells them to shut their mouths. He glares at the heroes and vows, teeth bared, that he's going to crush the demon. Ratsu grabs Stea and begs him to protect her. Then Helios snaps, says this is his final warning, and orders him to get out of the way. He snatches his sword and declares, "No, I'm not doing this." The man's rage erupts even harder. He charges in and hammers him with a spear. The guy slams up his guard and still gets blasted backward by the impact. Then Helio rockets in out of nowhere and lands a brutal punch. Ratsu rockets backward from the hit as the man spits out curses and hurls insults at the guy like he's got a whole list. Helio storms in and starts kicking him, barking that the guy won't dare fight back, yet the man just goes limp and takes it, letting Helio land every brutal blow. The man's partners shout for him to stop, and right when it lands, Dea bursts in front of Helio and demands he halt. She plants herself in front of him, throws her arms wide, and shields him like a living wall. They demand to know if she's really mocking them, and he booms out that he wants to know who's actually defending her. Helio throws his hand over his face and snaps that seeing a pathetic guy like that makes him feel genuinely sick to his stomach. Helio squints through his fingers with pure evil on his face, and the girl immediately whips around to face him. She snaps that the guy looks down on everyone else like they're beneath him. The man tightens his brows and snaps, asking the woman if she even recognizes who she's talking to. The girl snaps her head up with a stern glare and bluntly says she has no idea who he is. Then she demands, "So, who are you?" Suddenly, the man goes to strike the girl without a word. Then Ratsu bursts in, intercepts the spear, and throws himself in front of her. Helio locks eyes on the guy's weapon, then fires off. What kind of artifact is this? Ratsu thanks Dayu, and she waves it off, insisting she's okay, because in her mind, the guys have to protect the girl first and foremost. Suddenly, Helio's partner leans in and blurts that the demon's wide open right now. This is their shot, only for the other man to snap back that it's still not the right moment. The man stared hard as his partner fretted, asking why they couldn't do it right now. Helio explodes in anger, yelling that even if it looks different on the outside, it's still the same inside, and nothing is going to change. Then the men slam their hands together and cast the spell, Dear Magic of the Blood Spear. Ratsu clocks it instantly. The first hit came from the magic user, a massive burst aimed like a spear at one spot. And he also realizes the truth. Helio had natural talent at first, but he went and stacked 3 years of combat experience before Ratsu ever did. Ratsu realizes his artifact may be stronger, but Helio is still the one to fear, so he agrees it's too dangerous to strike head-on. Then Helio suddenly smirks and lays out his plan. I grant magic. He snaps into a fighting stance, whips the ball around, and unleashes a surge of black lightning. He's convinced the first attacker will fold, and that he'll smash his artifact before the guy even finishes striking. Helio grins like he's got a secret and tells the guy, "If you forgot, don't worry, I'll make sure you remember." The guy snaps into a fighting stance and insists they're nothing alike. Then Ratsu bursts forward and starts hammering him at crazy, breakneck speed. The men stare in shock at how fast he moves. Then he snaps his spear forward mid-thought and declares he's going to smash that guy. But the man slips the punch in a heartbeat. Ratsu's scream rips out, and he gathers every ounce of strength. He gets a clear shot in the open and smashes the spear with a brutal strike, cracking it clean in half. Helio's teammates spot it instantly. His B-rank artifact is shattered to pieces, and when Ratsu locks eyes with him, he shoots back an apology right on the spot. Helio snaps, rage flaring in his eyes, and with a cold, stern stare he fires back. The guy really thought smashing his artifact meant he'd won. Ratsu is totally lost. Then, out of nowhere and without a warning, the man yanks him by the edge of his shirt and knocks the breath out of his confusion. Without a second thought, he slams the hero down onto the brutal ground, and with cold contempt, he shouts that it's over. He isn't an adventurer at all, just another loser like everyone else. Helio yanks the guy by the shirt and snarls that anyone defending a demon is a truly bad person, but the man stays calm and shoots back, "Sure, she's a demon, yet she's not their enemy because she helped him, and come on, in that brutal moment, wasn't his real question whether she's an enemy just for being demonic." Helio whips his condemning stare onto the frightened girl and barks, "Listen, just me," leaving no room for doubt. He erupts into furious swearing, then demands, over and over, that the girl tell everyone whose families, friends, and loved ones demons slaughtered in cold blood, but were they really the ones who weren't enemies? Rage keeps surging in him as he whips around to snap at the rats, saying he was about to betray an entire group just to serve one single demon. Then he throws out a sharp rhetorical jab. Did he honestly forget what he said back at the very start of their conversation? Deep in his heart, the man still remembers that little boy with bright, shining eyes, flipping through a book and declaring, "I want to be a hero." Ratsu plants both feet, clutches Helio's hand with absolute conviction, and roars that he truly helps anyone who asks for help, even if it's a demon nobody wants to touch. With a grim frown, the man shoots back in pure sarcasm that he gets it all. Then he whips his busted spear around and declares that, right now, he's the enemy. Right then, like the world just snapped, guild members materialize out of nowhere and bark at him to stop cold and quit what he's doing. Still seething, the man snaps that adventurers who use artifacts without proper registration are breaking serious safety rules, then glares, angry and on edge, asking if they truly don't know that one crucial rule. Ratsu snaps his head toward the man, cheeks burning with shock, and can't believe it. Are these really the guild staff here to reprimand him? He glares at them with pure disgust, snaps that whatever sparked their fight, both of them will pay, and orders everyone to brace for the consequences. The whole town is confused by the commotion today, and one resident finally blurts out what he heard, that a renegade's been captured. Janet slumps in her office, griping that the outside noise is unbearable, while Helio and Ratsu sit right in front of her, facing away as if they refuse to look her in the eye. The girl explains it's all about adventurers going to war with powerful artifacts. Our team saw the whole fight. Then she whips around and points at Helio and Rats. Janet leans in and demands, "Got anything to say for yourselves? Anything at all in your defense?" Helio jabs his finger at the guy and snaps, "You're no adventurer, now you're a renegade." The man stares at him with a furious, contempt-filled glare and snaps that he showed up to protect the demon. The girl whips around and fires a question, "Is what you're saying actually true?" Ratsu drops his gaze, goes dead quiet for a beat, then finally admits it, every last bit of it is real. Dare is fuming and panicking at the same time. She snaps that none of it was like that at all, then demands the guy, "So why aren't you telling me anything?" Helio whips around, steps aside, and admits he thought he'd finally found the courage to fight back. The man whips his head around to the boy and snarls that he's a weakling, nothing but a crybaby, so he can't even speak up for his own opinion. Ratsu drops his eyes and his friend girl starts panicking harder. Then other adventurers suddenly show up and insist the truth is simple. Helio was just trying to defend himself, because the attacker was the one who came at him without any reason. So the partner goes ballistic, shouting that he's betraying their comrades, only for the man to shrug and say, "Because we're friends, I'm not telling the truth and I'll take the blame." He claims Helio's rampages are nothing new, but he swears he's never once laid a hand on any adventurer. The man snaps that this is a real problem. He even admits he froze when he considered it, but if they're true friends, they should have stopped him the way Dea did. Suddenly, an employee bursts into the office, begs for forgiveness, and turns to Janet. She shoots back. Is the interrogation over? Then the man leans in and whispers every detail to her, and Janet answers, got it, everything's clear. Janet turns to the heroes and tells them their tale, and the demon's tale, are basically twins. Then the girl snaps that Helio and his crew will get hit with punishment, a full week's suspension, and their artifacts seized for now. A guild member demands they hand over the artifacts, and one adventurer starts grumbling, while the other snaps at him to move faster. Helio whips around to her and growls that he's got no time to play adventurer like she does. His stern glare says it all. He's not going to be like her, and the other guy immediately gets every word he means. The group slips out and the girl blurts, totally lost, "What did you mean by that?" Just then, Janet swings the door open and calls them in. "Come on, you're coming with me." The heroes march down a long corridor, and Dea turns to Ratsu, demanding to know why he stayed silent. The man just bursts into laughter, and the girl shoots him a look, asking what on earth he's finding so funny. He admits he's been getting asked this question for ages, ever since childhood, back when a girl insisted he was a boy and told him to stand up to anyone who dared offend him. The man blurted out that he didn't refuse to answer. Then Janet spun around and stared the heroes down. Ratsu stared at the girl and finally admitted it. He'd been dying to help her. Janet blurts out that he's really choosing to protect humanity's enemy, so the whole world condemns him, and it ends with him turning into an apostate, and Dea just stares, stunned by what the girl is saying. But the guy shoots back that he's ready for whatever comes next, and Janet nods like she gets it. Then she swings the door open into the room. In the room, a tiny demon girl sits at the table, staring them down. Then Janet bluntly says they've decided she had nothing to do with the adventurers vanishing, and the boy and the girl are left reeling from what they just heard. Dea and Ratsu light up at the girl's words. Then Janet slams in, saying, "Hold up, we've got another problem," because the girl insists her life is still on the line. Demons are hunting her right now. He's hit with pure shock, and suddenly he recalls the exact moment she told him, "That's why I never got lost." Janet says that's exactly why they're taking me with them and hauling me straight to guild headquarters. One of the adventurers at the fountain snaps that they grabbed the artifacts for a week. "There's nothing to do, so don't call us friends." And the man fires back, demanding how long he'll keep whining. He says they're friends and they should have hashed it all out, then challenges why they were rushing like that in the first place. Helio dips his head and stays silent. Then the man snaps around to him, demanding a confession, and once he realizes this, his patience finally runs out. He swears this article blew up because the hero's right hand finally tore down one of the 7 great demons, and that hero's right hand wrecking came for Helio's best childhood friend. The boys dash out of the castle, and Ratsu pushes the idea. Nobody's here now, and we've got silence. Dea shrugs, saying even if they're spotted, the girl's got a hood on, so everything's going to be fine. Ratsu tells her the guild's headquarters sits in Clearland's biggest city, and the girl blurts out, "So are there tons of adventurers there?" Dea nods, sure that's gotta be the real heart of it. The girl promises they'll meet the guild leader and get permission to stay in the city, but she admits her nerves are screaming. Then the guy reassures her, insisting it'll be okay since she's been told everything. The demon girl nods along with him, and the man relaxes, sure everything's going to be okay since she's got nothing to do with the disappearance. Then they suddenly spot something off. Ratsu and Dea finally snap back to reality, realize they've skipped the basics, and straight up tell the girl their names so she can know exactly who they are. Shadowrun Torai finally blurts out her name, and the boys light up like, "Yes, you told us." Then she asks where they lived before, says she used to live on Mount Kokuyo, and one of the boys leans in, itching to know what kind of place that is. The girl shoots back that it's a place where something is always burning and turning to char, and the men grimace, "That's no life, that's survival." Then he leans in and asks, "So, are you really going back there?" Suddenly the girl falls silent, and the boy blurts, "What happened?" Shadowrun trembles with pure terror, insisting something horrifying is standing right there. He freezes up the moment it hits him. This is a nerve she absolutely can't stand to touch. The man snaps the topic to food time, asking the girls if they're hungry. Dea clocks the moment and beams as she happily agrees. The man strides in with total confidence and hands out jobs on the spot. He even declares he'll handle the camp, while the girl will cook dinner, and before she can overthink it, she beams and says yes, and soon a huge, beautiful fire crackles to life, bathing everything in warm, cozy light. The moment he realizes Rin's into this, he blurts out, "Can you even eat human food?" And Rin answers instantly, "Everything's fine." Dea beside her leans in asks, "So, does it taste good?" And she fires back the same confident, "Everything's fine." But the guy can't shake the thought, are things with her asterisk really that fine? Out of nowhere, the boy spots a glowing ring blazing on the girl's index finger. so he can't help himself and asks her to show him her artifact, because that thing sounds insanely fascinating. The girl stares at the man, thrown off and a little confused, and he can barely stand the awkwardness as he rushes to explain. He didn't think she'd suspect him in the first place. Dea senses the awkward air and jumps back in, insisting everything's totally fine and that he has nothing to worry about. Then she shrugs and explains the truth. The guy is just a huge fan of artifacts, that's all. The girl, cheeks burning, admits that he really does keep staring at other people's artifacts. Then she panics, blurts an apology, and before she can breathe, the man gets just as flustered and starts worrying, insisting to himself it's totally not like that. He corners the girl and asks when she pulled that off. She just laughs, says she's only kidding, and the whole mood suddenly turns lighter. Rin watches it all unfold, stunned by every twist, and silently studies them like she's trying to crack the real meaning of what's happening. The man, cheeks burning, asks the girl why she even brought it up, then admits he's genuinely dying to learn about artifacts like that, and just as the moment turns awkward, she giggles, and suddenly it's hilarious. The heroes whip around to face the happy girl, and for the first time in what feels like forever, she's smiling again, turning the whole moment into pure joy. Rin, believing the guy, thrusts her palm toward him and reveals the ring. He's caught off guard for a second, then asks if he can really see it, thanking her from the heart for her trust. When he touches the ring, he spots its rank C, and just as he starts examining its traits, he realizes the artifact is shockingly weak. Ratsu sat there, processing it all, and it hit him. Of course, the guild would instantly decide this girl was harmless. The boy suddenly snaps to it. Level 1 is ironclad proof she's never taken a life. The girl clamps her hands to her chest and blurts, "Is that enough?" And the man answers with total sincerity. He's genuinely relieved he saved her, because she's still standing beside him. He leans into the girl and tells her the demon-sainted artifact is both a killing weapon and a miracle tool that can stitch up your wounds. She stares at her glowing ring, hooked, like she's already lost in what it can do. The man tells her she saved the dog and helped them when they were hurt, then admits this sacred treasure is her reward for her kindness. The girl blushes at everything she's just heard, thrilled she did the right thing, but when she tries to speak, the words just won't come, so she lies down and says it's time to sleep. Then Dea asks if she doesn't want to go to the tent. He nodded and admitted he needed sleep too, then said they'd trade off duty, because today had been brutal and packed with one event after another for all of them. The girl twists toward the man leaning on her, eyes bright, and tells him she heard something wild from Miss Janet, about the secret protective zone for demons, the Gensok, and trust her, it sounds way too intriguing to ignore. Dea clutches a steaming mug of that sweet-smelling drink and asks him, just out of curiosity, if he knows anything about this special place. He shakes his head and admits he knows nothing, but that answer only makes Dea's curiosity roar even louder. The man pushes himself to his feet, stares at her like she's crazy, and asks what this place is, because why is she talking about it like he should already know? The girl's face hardens as she explains that this is a guild-made safe haven, no fighting, no conflict, meant to protect harmless demons, no matter what. Then she adds that it feels like humans and demons are living side by side without a single clash, and that's exactly what sparks the optimists' wild ideas. The guy's intrigued on the spot, so he leans in, eyes wide, and demands to know where this place even is. With a quiet sadness in her voice, the girl says this place doesn't exist, because the plan got rejected, stamped off, and it all turned out so cruel. Then the man drags a hand over his face and mutters that after everything that's happened today, this is exactly the kind of place they need. Caught in Dea's words, the guy slams a hand to his head and wonders why she'd even start this conversation. Then Dea, cheeks warming, shoots back, "Do you really even care about me?" The girl stares at the sleeping girl and says, "This wasn't random, it was planned," meaning there really were people out there like them who genuinely wanted to help innocent demons, even with the persecution raining down. The man's eyes fly wide in shock, like her words just lit up a whole new train of thought, while the girl wastes zero time, keeps talking, and lands on the same punchline. Even if people claim she's wrong, she's certain she's doing exactly the right thing. Ratsu's joy explodes across his face as he beams at the girl, thanking her for everything with real heart. Then he vows they'll absolutely find a home for Rin, and hope hits him like lightning. The little girl blushes from all the attention, yet she still flashes a sweet, gentle smile at everyone. Next morning, the boys fired up and hit the road, marching straight through jagged mountains and rocky stretches, then slogging through huge rivers, all while soaking in the wild beauty of nature around them. The guys kept pushing deeper along those unknown paths, until he finally glanced around and realized, man, we've come a long way today, and that thought lit a rush of pride in him as they marched forward. On this scorching day, the boys decide to dive into the lake to cool off, and while Rin splashes around and soaks up the moment, he turns to the boy and asks, "Aren't you swimming with us?" The girl flashes a smile and a tiny bit of reproach, then tells him he can't come with them, but the guy just stands there in awkward silence, staring at the situation like he's not sure what to do. He leans in with a warm smile and tells her, "With us like this, whether you're human or a demon doesn't matter. What matters is that we're right here, side by side." While he's wrestling with it, he can't ignore the terrifying flip side, disappearance cases, and that worry clings to him. Then the bath ends, the fun starts to fade, and Daya rushes to apologize to the boy for keeping him waiting for so long. As he rushes back to his work, he digs through his bag, then an evil, nasty laugh snaps the air in half. He freezes, startled, and slowly turns toward the sound, and his heartbeat starts going wild with what might be coming next. He snaps his gaze up and meets a wall of demons, dead set on attacking, and fear claws at his chest. The crocodile-headed demon grins so wide it looks cruel, then cheerfully tells Shatoran, "I found you," and that sweet little line hits like a threat. Rin spots the demons and freezes in pure terror, while the guy stares at their massive numbers, stunned. Are these really demons, and why are there so many? Then he glances at the girl defending Rin and starts to wonder how they could have missed them until now. The crocodile-headed demon wields his blade, grins, and dares them, give up the girl or watch him die, or if he moves first, they'll wipe them out fast, like it's some twisted game he set up. The guy snaps into a fighting stance the second he realizes how bad this gets, gripping his sword even though it still won't activate, while the other man says nothing, just watches the demon like a hawk, ready to react the instant everything shifts. Without wasting a second, the demon surges forward, barks at him to answer, and the monster snaps his sword through the air, clash, and suddenly the tension in the room turns razor-sharp. And the guy answers with total confidence, cool as ice, saying the demon's just too slow, like it's a challenge begging to be accepted. Reptile just laughs, smugly swears they'll see it all again, and swings his sword, until the other guy moves like lightning. He slams his blade down, activates it, and chops the demon's paw clean off, shocking everyone there. The man lifts the gun right up to the monster's face, swears, dead serious, that he won't hand over the girl and he won't pull the trigger on him, and then he locks eyes with the demon, unmoving and unshakable, delivering his choice like a verdict you can feel hanging in the air. The demon, reeling from what that guy just did, panics hard and can't even figure out who he's dealing with. This isn't what he was promised, and dread soaks through his whole body. Then, like someone pulled a lever, every demon in the area flinches at the same terrifying thing and scatters without thinking. Right after that, a new person shows up, calm as can be, and declares that everything they've been doing is pointless. The adventurer swings once, perfectly, and smashes every last demon into defeat, leaving them totally helpless. Ratsu drops into a crouch to dodge the blow, then ducks behind a tree, peeking at the man up in a branch far off, who notices their confusion, apologizes, and snaps that they don't need these useless demons. The guy spots the Snow-White kid right in front of them, because his skin, hair, eyes, and even that mysterious artifact blazing in his clothes seem to glow with pure white. The man stares him down, frowns, and can't make sense of the crushing pressure building in his chest, like some invisible force is trying to squeeze him to the bone. Caught up on that branch, he takes it all in and blurts out that it's honestly incredible. Then he's stunned at himself. I really prepared all those demons, and still, I beat every single one so effortlessly in battle. Ritsu freezes at the guy's words, blurts, "What do you mean?" and doesn't buy it for a second. The man orders him, "Come down, we can talk calmly," and the guy, still slightly unsure, shoots back, "Why are you acting so stupid if you want to keep me from seeing how vulnerable you are?" He smirks like they're not even there, swears he'll still take his tar date no matter what, and that grin turns the whole room razor tense. Drenched in the need to protect his friends, the man yanks his sword up and hurls a brutal spell. Ratsu's like, "Wait, what did he mean by target?" But before he can even finish, Dea spots it. The girl is gone, and the whole group erupts in instant panic. Moments later, Rin shows up cradled in the boy's arms, and the heroes instantly panic, because it hits them. She's in danger again. With fear shaking her voice, Rin blurts out to Ratsu and Dea that she's sorry they couldn't save her in time. Without even thinking, the guy slashes with black lightning, zapping the enemy and steering the bolt straight into them. Then mid-swing he spots his target vanish, and the shock hits him instantly. Out of nowhere, the guy slips in far behind Ratsu, and without a single shred of panic, admits that Ratsu's got serious talent, straight up admitting just how strong his opponent is. But the man says it still isn't enough. He needs real battle experience. Then that hits Ratsu like a hammer to the chest, rage igniting inside him as he explodes, yells the girl's name, and charges in to save her at any cost. The determined boy declares he'll get the girl back and rips open black lightning again, darting to every point he can reach to land a hit. Then the enemy pops up behind him once more, taunting with a sharp little, "Is something wrong?" Dea realizes he's moving way too fast. Ritsu spun around and realized the demons were vanishing from right under his nose, faster than he could blink, and panic shot through him. Suddenly, the girl snaps out of the man's grip the moment she gets the opening, demands that he let her go, and the guy replies, stone-cold serious, that his business isn't just with her. He snaps his gaze to the girl, scans the heroes for a beat, and asks her if she wants him to bring these two along with him. With a smug smirk, the boy promises they're heading to Onyx, and the moment Rin hears that name, terror slams into her so hard she freezes in place, remembering her brother's command to run. Out of nowhere, the guy bursts into laughter, and the sound slices the air clean in two like it's made of paper, leaving Ratsu stunned. The man can't even wrap his head around it, staring like, how did I just cut through space? And the whole thing looks straight up unreal. A massive, blinding portal rips open in front of the girl, glowing bright as it swallows the space around them like time itself. Ratsu shoots out his hand and blurts to Rin, "Get away from me," his voice shaking with pure panic as he begs her to run to him as fast as she can. The girl stares straight at the portal and doesn't even blink, not a single glance back. Then the guy, drowning in despair but refusing to quit, screams her name at the top of his lungs, praying it'll snap her out of that dazed stupor, while the white-haired guy just watches with a smug smile like he's loving every second of the game. Suddenly, Rin whips around, flashes those boys a warm smile, and then still, she won't say a word. The girl spins away again and eases into the portal, vanishing into its dark, bottomless depths, while the guy snaps that she's a demon and fate says she'll never survive living among people. The man finally says goodbye to the unknown adventurer, still gripping Ratsu's hand, and he stares in stunned disbelief as the portal slams shut right in front of them. He keeps staring at that hope-filled exit right to the very end, and it finally hits him. There's nothing he can do against this merciless situation. The very next day, the townspeople storm into a gathering, eyes blazing with resolve, and vow that today they'll track down the demon and set things right, until one man blurts out, "What happens if the guild hears we found nothing?" And panic ripples through the crowd. Out of nowhere, a black demon lunges into their path, cackling with a razor-wide grin as the crowd's bravado snaps into place, and the men blurt, "Who the hell are you?" The demon with black, gleaming eyes grins as he counts the warriors, about 20, then bursts into laughter, smug as ever, saying he didn't need to go into the city, and it sounds like a taunt. The soldiers trade whispers, asking if he's truly a demon. The demon doesn't flinch, he nods, confident as ever, and shoots back that it should be obvious from him he's more than just a demon, until a warrior, shaking with excitement, suddenly raises his hand and barks, "Attack." And the demon only stares at the charging fighters, stunned. All three men snap their swords toward the demon at the same time and slam in brutal, crushing strikes into its body. But he doesn't even budge, just tilts his head with a tiny grin and asks if they're really going to take this seriously. Then he tells them, plain and simple, to hear him out to the very end, and the whole atmosphere snaps into something completely different. The warriors don't recognize him, and his terrifying confidence makes them freeze, until the demon roars that he's one of the 7 great demons, then unleashes unstoppable power with a single, lightning-fast strike that shatters the battlefield and changes everything. Ratsu, drowned in his own thoughts, rips through his stash of artifacts, grabbing each one, staring it down, and realizing, piece by piece, they're all useless for any real fight. Confusion hits him hard, and despair starts to choke his heart. The boy frowns, stuck on why none of those artifacts will work, because he's sure he can synthesize any weapon that might save him. Then boom, Dai's confused voice cuts in, asking why Rin left, and it hits him that they're worried about the same thing, while the girl finally admits she truly believed they were all friends. The guy reels from watching the girl walk away, and with a heavy heart admits, if they were truly friends, she never would have looked that hurt, embarrassed, crushed, and utterly lost. With her hands pressed to her own chest, the girl shakes her head like she still can't believe it, then nods, because she truly did laugh with him once, and that memory slams into her like a painful punch. Dea, lost in her own thoughts, wonders why Rin vanished. Then the guy snaps back that she should ask Rin directly, and that they need to move now because time is everything. Startled, Dea asks where they're even going, and he grins and says it's all about his ability. He breaks it down how the white guy slammed the artifact into reality, slicing straight through space like the rules didn't touch him, and then he points to it. Those demons that popped in out of nowhere, plus that long-range attack, likely triggered the whole mess and unlocked his freakish ability. He realizes this guy won't fold to brute force like before, and that thought crawls under his skin. Then Ratsu blurts out he's pretty sure he knows where Rin is now, and hope suddenly lights up his chest. The man stares at the girl and snaps, "I can smell something burning out here," and the memory hits him. She'd told him she lived in a place where something was always blazing. Suddenly Dea snaps, she remembers and asks, "Did I really tell them about this place?" while her mind flashes with fuzzy, half-buried memories. Determination blazing in his eyes, the boy confidently swears he's going to save Rin, Then he snaps at the girl to mount Kokuyo right now, like it's a move so powerful it feels almost like a spell. Right then, the white boy and girl storm into this massive, gloomy cave, where dark whispers crawl through the air, and as soon as he steps inside, the boy whips around to Onyx and shouts that he's finally home, like he's returned after the longest, hardest journey of his life. A snake-headed demon lunges out of the corner and greets the boy, then the man demands, "What about Onyx?" And the demon smirks, "He was out, but he's back now," sending a wave of pure anticipation through everyone in the room. Right then, another demon comes charging in, grinning like it's Christmas, cheering that Quartz is back at last, until the girl spots him and her fear spikes instantly. The demon laughs at her, greets her warmly and threateningly, and taunts, "Didn't you miss me after all?" Rin panics, shrinks back, and freezes in terror. The demon grills them about Quartz's affairs, then snarls, "Where are our guys?" And the white guy shrugs with zero emotion, saying, "Yeah, it didn't work," leaving everyone else bristling in tense silence. The boy leaned in and asked, "So you know, not only are we heading for the royal capital, but we're taking the exact same road." And suddenly it hit them how huge this journey really was. The demon stares him down and snaps back that they've got intel on a renegade who's about to unleash revenge, and that bombshell hits everyone like a punch to the chest. Suddenly, the demon plops onto a rock and drops a bombshell. Even in their crew, there's a snitch quietly embedded in the guild. Then he grins and says, "Pay them money, and they'll do anything." He claims that's the whole core of what they are, only for the girl to stare at him in shocked disbelief. Quartz nods and says he'd be happy to help either way, but the black demon suddenly cuts him off, demanding Quartz join his group right then and there. The boy shoots back with total confidence, "Join them." That means he can't work with any other faction, and that crushes every shred of hope. So the demon on the stone throne leans in, all curiosity, and asks what his real goal even is. With that huge grin, the white demon finally drops the mask. His real dream is wiping out humans, and nothing in the world matters to him more than that. The black demon grins and taunts, asking if he really should play it safe, because if everything goes right, he could be crowned the next generation's demon king. The demon hammers the same claim again, this time saying the last candidate was wiped out by a tiny red-haired girl. Then Quartz snaps back that it doesn't matter to him at all, and you can practically feel the fighter's iron resolve in every word. The boy admits it's time for him to go rescue Rin, so the demon leans in and asks how many adventurers even showed up, and the man snaps back that none would ever lift a finger, because Rin came here on her own, and they've got zero reason to help her. The white guy grabs his stuff and storms out, promising they'll see each other soon, his words hanging in the air like a riddle, while the black demon, stunned by what he just heard, whips around to her and demands, "So you really came here alone?" Suddenly, the black demon barrels in and clamps the girl in a hug, demanding to know if she's finally ready to heal his right hand. She panics and begs him to stop. The girl shoves him back and snaps, "Don't touch me," and then the black demon spots her ring. He grabs it and bam, he realizes she's still stuck at level 1. He leans in and demands, "So you still can't kill anyone?" Rin's eyes widen, terrified as the demon looms. The black demon lets her go and demands, "So you didn't come back to fix my hand," but she shuts him down immediately, firm and fearless, "No." Rin snaps at him, yelling that she said this 100 times. She doesn't have that kind of power. The demon slaps his hand over his face and blurts out, "Is this really true? It means my power won't be enough." Then he snaps back, "Don't worry, I've got something ready for this exact situation," and the girl freezes, trembling, "What did you plan?" The black demon shouts for Cinta. Ever since she vanished, he's been snatching adventurers and even collecting ransoms. Then he admits he's been wondering if anyone out there can heal his right arm. The man reluctantly admits that sadly there aren't any. Then the girl spots something off and snaps, "Wait." She demands to know what he's been doing all this time, and the demon finally confesses, he's been kidnapping adventurers. Rin's eyes widen with terror as she suddenly remembers what Janet said about the adventurer disappearance. Then the black demon laughs, admitting he never expected anything from humans, and that's exactly why he hatched his brilliant plan. The man swears the artifacts get stronger when they kill, says the method doesn't matter, only one thing counts, destroy the person, and then the girl spots a wooden cart charging toward them. She spots the demon's cart, and it's packed with people laid up in brutal, critical condition. Then one demon yanks the cart up, and the poor souls tumble hard onto the ground. The girl's terrified to her bones. There in front of her, barely alive people stagger and beg for help, and then Ren crumples to the ground, frozen in fear, not daring to move as the demon leans in and asks what she thinks she's doing. The black demon with a nightmarish face grips the girl tight, screaming that he stacked all this power just so she can level up and bring back his arm. Then he stares into her eyes and orders her to slaughter them. Ratsu and Deya sprint through the forest, and the exhausted girl gasps out, "I'm sorry, I'm just getting in your way." She then begs him to go ahead alone, leaving her behind. Just like that, the boy snaps his head toward the girl and announces they've finally arrived at Mount Kokuyo, and Ren's mind goes straight to her brother, Tori. But wait, why does he go by two names? Little Rin barrels after her brother, shouting, "Why are you called Right and Tafru?" And the kid ahead just shrugs, explaining that people have last names tied to their family, not only first names. He asks his sister, is it really cute? Then he throws the imitation right back at her, and she stares up at him, eyes shining, admiring, and says, "Yep, you're right," before announcing that starting today, she's going to be a Shitori Tori. Rin can't forget it. Her brother loved humans like crazy, so much that she teased him by calling him human-sane, because he was obsessed with the very bonds humans share. She remembers it, he cared for her like she was his little sister, because they both came from the same village, and she admits she loved him right back, like the real brother she truly treasured. Rin flashes her brother the dark ring, and he grins, telling her she finally has her own ring now. Then she beams, showing it off as it glows. He says there's this sweet custom. When a man and woman fall in love and make things official, they slip rings onto each other's left ring finger, and the girl lights up, grinning like, "You should do that with my brother." But he shuts it down fast. "We're brother and sister, so no can do." Then he explains they'll put the ring on the index finger of the right hand instead, and she's stunned, until she blurts out, "Why not?" The boy tells his sister, "Because you're so kind, you got healing magic, magic that can hit both people and demons," and then he grins like, "This artifact is made for you." Rin thought this quiet peace would last forever, until he finally showed up. Hiding in the forest, she spots a demon bleeding, hunted down by an adventurer, and she rushes over, breathless, asking if he's hurt and if everything's okay. The girl blurts out a healing spell and rushes it onto him without a second thought, but the demon just stares at himself, then bolts like he's done nothing wrong, and Rin's furious that he didn't even say thanks, until the brothers explain that he was actually shaken and hurt, so Rin doesn't have to take it personally. The boy ruffles his sister's hair, praising her like she just saved the day, and she beams and agrees, until suddenly the whole town erupts in angry voices. The black demon locks eyes with the girl and rages with praise, telling her she's incredibly talented, then says his people will look after her, introduces himself as Onyx, and announces he's come to take her away. The girl ducks behind her brother's back as the black demon slides up and demands she join him, because she's the only one who can put his lost right arm back. The boy jumps to his feet to shield his sister, tells the demon Shatori can't do that kind of power right now, and calm but firm asks the demon to back off and go home. The demon reasons that since the girl can't do it right now, it has to crank things up by killing people. Then the guy snaps back that his sister would never want that, and the demon just can't stop calling it strange. Onyx snaps that his message was messed up, and that means everything's gone terribly wrong. Then the demon's face twists, and with a furious, bossy voice, it growls that he's not asking her at all, he's giving orders. The boy leaps up to shield his sister, hurling a magic sphere straight at the demon. The brother snaps at his sister to run, but she trembles and says she can't. Then he erupts, screaming for her to get away, and she bolts down the path with tears blazing in her eyes. Rin bursts into the human village, begging for help, and the moment the men spot her, they rush over, asking what happened, while Rin, gasping after that terrifying sprint, pleads for their help. She strains to say, almost between breaths, that her brother needs help, but the moment the men spot her horns, fear snaps through them. The men explode into shouts, "She's a demon, she'll kill everyone," and the girl, getting no answers, just stares them down. The men bark orders for the whole village to run, and the desperate girl pleads with them to just hear her out. She rushes up to a villager, pleading for help, but the man snaps orders to the others, "Anything that can look like a weapon, grab it." Then they turn on the demon, ready to finish him, and the poor little demon spirals into sheer terror, choking on horror as he panics for his brother. She hears the black demon bark orders to wipe out people, and the girl just collapses on the floor, clutching her horns tight, trembling like she can't breathe. The demon lets out a cruel laugh and taunts Shatorin, "So, what happened? Don't you want to help me?" Then Shatorin points at the injured people and says, "I set all of this up just for you."